Yeah, hopefully do something in the spring, when we all meet outside.
Oh, that'd be great.
Everybody
Yeah,
feel
because
more
we didn't want to
comfortable.
miss it. So
Yeah.
You are live.
Thank you. I didn't know that.
is Patricia coming?
Yes.
If she can get out of the driveway.
Oh, okay. Oh,
She called and said she'll be late.
the drifted.
Yeah.
That
and
we
I'm waiting.
Did you see the sands go?
I'm just gonna grab a water.
on the
Okay.
ocean?
As soon as you come.
The wind, like.
Yeah, I have too.
sands
So.
come
I mean,
in.
just recently?
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen it in the past, yeah. One time we were at S Beach.
Lost time.
And it was so weird because we were only deep down in the boat and all the spice was there. And the ice was shit.
Just a little, nice little article.
Yeah.
Oh.
Seen it on the news.
And it was kind of snowing hard. You hear this.
Yep.
Really? Yeah,
Oh.
the ice was shifting constantly. Yeah. That was scary.
Yeah, you'll have to, I'll have to see if I can find a picture. Like these little, that outfit mushrooms.
Yeah.
It's really-
Call this meeting to order. We have a prayer this morning by Commissioner Rushton.
Good morning, everyone. Please join me in prayer for our nation's military patriots and our first responders who stand in harm's way in defense of our republic's founding principles of liberty for our nation and fellow man. We ask for their protection as well as those who serve our local communities, comforting, assisting, and protecting our way of life for all our families. As we gather together, Lord, give us clear minds and peaceful hearts. Calm the troubled sea of life and speak peace to our souls. Give us the moral and ethical strength of character, integrity to be honest, incorruptible, respectful, beneficent, promoting good, non-maleficent, where we do no harm, and the courage to combat the evil lies beget, and for all to speak truth. Lord, I ask today in these chambers that you give us the wisdom and courage to govern with the ethical strength of character.
Thank you. So please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. And this one, maybe we could do it in recognition of the Law Enforcement Day of January 9th. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So we have roll call, please.
Commissioner Robbins,
Here.
Commissioner Rushton,
Present.
Commissioner Bonnet,
Here.
Commissioner Wessel,
Here.
Commissioner Sotos
Here.
Commissioner Alguier,
Here.
Commissioner Lautner,
Present.
all present.
Thank you. So then that would bring us to the approval of the agenda. I do have no late additions. Commissioner Rushton.
In looking over the agenda, I see that we have an issue today in regards to number 9, I would like to have that withdrawn from the agenda today, as that was discussed and at our organizational meeting.
We have a support.
Is that a motion for the agenda that was removed?
Yes, I'm asking for it to be removed.
Support.
So the motion would be to approve the agenda with number 9 removed. Commissioner,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we also, under item 10, discussed at our organizational meetings, the rules and procedures, and also our board goals. So I don't really see why that is different.
any other questions? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no.
No,
Okay, the motion fails 4-3. We have a motion to approve the agenda as
I
presented.
move to approve the agenda as presented. Support.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no.
Aye.
No. The motion passes 5-2.
I'm sorry, who,
Rushton and Bunning, or no?
Rushton and Bonnie for now? Okay.
All right, so then that brings us then to public comment, and we have a new rule in which public comment is now limited to 3 minutes. Other than that, there isn't any change in public comment. Please come forward.
My understanding is that until you approve the policies, public comment remains 5 minutes. Is that not so?
Mr. Chairman, you did vote on that last.
So that our organizational meeting is an official meeting, and it was voted on at that time and installed into our policies and procedures.
Okay, I noticed in that meeting that there was some comments made that in certain cases, a little extra time could be afforded a person. What I have to say is 3.5 minutes. I'd ask that I be allowed to pursue that.
I guess I would be the one who decides, and the board has said 3 minutes, so we will.
Okay,
try to limit to that.
I'll read fast. The new policy of, I'm Keith Ashley from Leelanau Township. The new policy of reducing the public comment time won't really impact your length of meetings by any appreciable amount in most cases. Muzzling the public never works. Commissioner Bunnick, you stated in the previous executive meeting that you felt there was a definite quietness and solemnness to the meeting since the prayer was introduced. Your warm fuzzy feeling is proof God is answering the minister's prayer. If your warm feeling is that proof, may I suggest that you grant them another 3 minutes then to pray for the sick and dying children around the world, who in spite of millions of anguished parental prayers continue to die. Let's see if those prayers will be answered as well and really feel fuzzy about something good. Commissioner Lautner, you stated the prayer issue has become a circus. Wikipedia defines a circus as a company of performers who put on a diverse entertainment show that may include clowns. I would not describe this board in that manner, even though it is fun to see the rationale used to justify decisions. One, Bill Perkins' term on the Solid Waste Council was ended in part because he was on it for a long time and to make room for someone else, which follows the board policy. Commissioner Lautner was retained as vice chair of this committee last meeting because she held the position for a long time and was doing a good job in spite of someone else wanting it. Two, the prayer policy works because Commissioner Bunnick feels the gentleness. I would hope the enterprise will pick up on it. My suggested headline, warm fuzzy feelings drive policies. Three, Commissioner Bunnick states the Traverse City clergy can participate in the prayer if they choose to be a chaplain for the sheriff or one of the 7 fire departments in the county. There's 35 distinct church categories listed in Traverse City and 192 clergy persons. So do the math on that idea. Your rash decision to establish 2 new departments without study or justification is now unfolding for the public to see the results of no planning. The person doing some, much, or all of the financial work in the clerk's office is moved from the clerk's office, receives a $30,000 raise, a new department head, and the clerk is now advertising to fill the vacated position at $37,000 a year plus benefits. Did not the financial work and some of the clerk's budget transfer with the promotion of Jennifer Zawicki. 5, the unfilled HR human resource position is now being shopped around to other departments to see if you can find enough work and funds for this new department head. This clearly reveals a gross lack of planning before authorizing the $250,000 expenditure for the 2 new departments. You wasted hours of your time. 6, you wasted hours of your time and the public's time to generate a firestorm against the Leelanau Benzie Health Department's policy. Can I make my closing statement?
Your time is up, sir. Please.
Thank you.
So when you think about the
Please,
circus,
sir.
reflect on who the ringmasters are.
Thank you very much. Please compose.
I'm the Reverend Dr. Robin Long Carden. I live in Cleveland Township. I've been an ordained minister in the United Church of Christ for over 21 years. 16 of those years have been spent as pastor of Sutton's Bay Congregational Church. I love my church. I love my vocation. And it is because I respect ministry in all its forms that I am compelled to speak to 2 issues brought up during your organizational meeting last week in your conversation about public prayer at your meetings. First, to your comment, Mr. Bunnick, anybody can come and pray from Traverse City. All he has to do is get a fire department to back him up and he can become their chaplain and he can come right here and pray. Our county's first responders, be they firefighters, EMTs, sheriff's deputies, or dispatchers, are firsthand witnesses to tragic and heartbreaking situations. As such, they deserve the spiritual support of a trained, certified, dedicated chaplain who understands his or her role as a sacred duty. A person from another county who, in your words, gets the backing of an area department of first responders in order to be able to give a prayer at one of your meetings would not be living into the sacred covenant she or he has with that group of people that he or she is serving. Indeed, such a person would be exploiting our first responders. I do not know of a colleague who would do such a thing. While it may be allowable due to a clause in your policy, it is not an action that would be taken in good faith when it comes to serving our first responders. Second, to your comment, Mr. Robbins, I know there are some clergy who won't come because anytime there's controversy, they don't want to be near that. Mr. Robbins, you and I do not know the same clergy people. I do not know any of my clergy colleagues here in the county who are not signing up to pray at your meetings because they are avoiding controversy. Indeed, in over 20 years of ministry, my clergy colleagues and I have boldly and willingly engaged in controversial situations to advocate for justice, mercy, and equality for all of God's children and creation. I am engaging in this potentially controversial action this morning to take this opportunity to reassert the reason why I do not pray publicly at your meetings. This is a perspective I offered in my initial letter expressing my opposition to public prayers at meetings of this board. While you have created a policy that makes it legal, it is at its heart a policy that divides, has the dangerous potential of promoting Christian nationalism, and is ill-advised considering the diversity in opinion, experience, and perspective among county residents. The minute of silence during which every person in the room can pray or reflect in whatever way is most meaningful to them, and then the unison recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance, that feels unifying, that feels appropriate, that feels right. I urge you to abandon public prayers at your meetings and return to that which worked so well. Thank you for your service and your time. You are appreciated.
Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, then we've moved to commissioner comment. Comments at this time, Commissioner Robbins.
Yeah, I have that thing, you'll find me, I saw it this morning about 5 o'clock. It's about the liquor consumption in the state of Michigan, and they broke down 83 counties, and I wanted to share with you that of the 83 counties, we're 59, so we're pushing towards a dry county, it looks like. No, this is just humor, Mark, but the 2 districts that I would say probably Commissioner Allgaier and myself are the ones that are probably maybe pushing people to drinking, because the over-counter sales was in her district. Stefan's Grocery and Glen Arbor sold about $450,000 worth of alcohol, and on premise was in my district, the Apache Truck Grill at 76,000. So I just wanted to share that. We are 59 out of 83 for liquor. It's on, it was on Michigan Live this morning, and the average resident, we spend $151 a year, so we're 34th out of 83 counties. So I just wanted to share.
Any other comments? Seeing none, then we'll move on to communications, proclamations, presentations, administrator update.
Yeah, start. Good morning, everyone. I have a bit of a sore throat this morning, so I apologize for that. But I thought we had a very good discussion last week about goals. And I know that's on the agenda for hopefully approval today, but I want to share some goals that I've come up with. And I hope to come back in March and say that these are all accomplished. So these are my goals for this year. The first one is personnel. As you know, we're going through a restructuring. Every Christmas, my wife gets a puzzle, a 1,000-piece puzzle, and puts it all out, and it drives me nuts because all these pieces, they all look alike. So I'm kind of dealing with a personnel puzzle now that we're trying to put all the pieces together, and I'm confident we'll be successful. My goal is to either have it completely in place or a structure in place to have it implemented in March. As you know, we started the process. We do have now a finance director, and Jen Zawicki here is in the room, I believe, there. So thank you, Jen, for stepping forward on that. We are meeting with the staff on a weekly basis, trying to make the switch from the clerk's office to my office. And there's so many pieces, especially now with the end of the year budget and also with the audit coming up, but I'm confident we'll get through it. On top of that, and this is a positive thing, our accounting clerk, Sarah Lauter, is having a baby here in a week or two. And we're grateful that she's doing well, but we have to find someone to take on those chores because it's very difficult to continue doing that. So Jen and I have been working on plans. We're working on goals for the first month, the first 3 weeks, and the first 3 months, and the first year. And so I'm confident we're going to get through that and make the transition as smooth as possible and have it done hopefully either in March or have everything in place to have it implemented shortly, because we are starting the audit process also in March. The HR position has been posted, as well as the information technology technician. As you know, Ron is departing us in end of April probably, but with his vacation days, he may be gone before that. I know he will be gone before that. So we posted that job. There's been some interest already on the HR. As you know, I did reach out to other units of government. We have 4 units that have expressed at least an interest in those partnerships, and I'm hoping to meet with them this week and next week to see what their level is and how we can go forward with that. Also coming up with a plan on office space. Obviously, when you restructure, there's a need for people to have offices. Obviously, the HR person had to have an office. The office adjacent to mine is where the finance director will be. And I do have a plan, at least in my head, how we can serve HR, finance, move the accounting over to the administrator's office, and also make space for our VA rep. And we also have our Medicaid gentleman who comes in and does counseling. So we're trying to work all that out without creating a lot of cost. And I think it will work. I think I have a plan in place. We're just working out the details now, because it also includes phone service, IT services, and so forth. But I'm confident that we'll have a plan in place. Matter of fact, I'm hoping to come forward a plan next month here that will address all these issues. And so I'm optimistic this will work. If you look at our website, we already have made changes. We have added HR and finance to the departments there, and we're updating those webpages. So I think we're going forward the best we can, and I'm confident this will work out in the long-term interest for the county. So that's goal number 1. Goal number 2 is develop a long-term facilities plan. And I've asked Gary O'Connor to come and join us. As you know, this has been a concern of mine, and we've been more reactive than proactive. I think I mentioned during our budget process, we have a 3-person staff now. We had a 3-person staff in Leland. Since then, we moved to this very much more complex facilities, two big buildings. We added a dam, we added a park, and we still have the same 3-person staff. So that's been a challenge, and I like to be more proactive than reactive. And we need to have a long-term plan. And so, as you know, I've asked Gary through DMW to come and work with me on this. We started this in November. And once again, I'm still in that March timeframe to have this done in March. So I just asked Gary just to give a brief update, what he has done since November and what you will receive hopefully in March. So.
Good morning, thank you. I need to point out for those who don't know about this, but I have an extensive background in this very area as well as electrical and things like that. But what you're going to receive is an evaluation of all of the buildings, the campus, and anything that even looks like it could be a potential problem, including pictures and things like that. We're also talking about what I will be inspecting is plumbing, the structures, all of the electrical panel boxes, circuit breakers, to make sure that we are in a positive forward motion to take care of anything that could come up in the future.
So far, Gary, you have done, as I understand, the parks, the towers,
Yes,
and you're focusing now on these 2 buildings.
on these 2 buildings, the pole barn as well. Nothing real serious as of yet. We haven't seen anything like that. Little cosmetic stuff, but you'll have pictures and a full evaluation. But these 2 buildings here, there's a lot to them. They're very intricate, and it's a matter of taking time to look at every aspect and every piece of control equipment and all that goes with it.
I'm just wondering, if we use the lower level here for additional office space, are you looking at it that how that could be converted, or is that possible, I guess?
Once we,
as a use of it.
in answer to your question, once we have an idea of where the office cubicle structures will be put, then we can make a proper determination. But we're more than adequate with the equipment that we have. As you know, we have 95 heat pumps in this building, but the baseboard heat is wonderful to begin with. So in answer to your question, we shouldn't have to add to anything unless there's a specific reason.
And we hope to have an answer for that question by January 19th at our ARPA.
I just wondered when he was looking at it, was he?
Yes, actually, Gary was with me, Health Department people, and John Richards
Yes,
when we met originally.
Good.
As you know, we're hoping to have a plan, an answer to that first of the year, but the person working on unfortunately got ill. And so we're hoping to have it by January 19th, but Gary has been part of that
Yeah, don't
dialogue.
get ill.
no,
No.
not, it's against my will, if you'll excuse the expression, to get ill.
So I just want to give you a quick update that we're working on it, and the goal is in March to have a full report.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Mr. Russell.
I'm pleased that we're moving ahead with facilities.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed that we're moving ahead with the HR. I made my view on that clear. But as we look at HR, if we are insisting upon going forward with that, received a notice from Trudy yesterday about $100 million additional funds that are available for infrastructure and county governments for housing rehab, et cetera. And I wish we were putting money into somebody that might help with some grant writing and bringing in additional resources. That's a need we have. And as you look at the HR person, maybe you'd be willing to consider, we'd be willing to consider that person would also have some responsibility for seeking additional funds. We know we don't need an HR person, but we certainly know that we do need to capture some funds for this county that can help our people. So I'd urge you, as you move forward with plans, to consider HR/grant coordination. there is money out there. We don't have any dedicated people to that. Trudy does a nice job, other people do a nice job. But the big grants are going to take somebody that has more time to really try to capture that money. And here's one that Trudy sent out. It's $100 million American Rescue Fund planning grant, specifically related to building rehab, housing and housing development. And we don't have anybody to do that. We don't have any HR problems that I know of, but we do have lost opportunities for grants. That's my 2 cents on that. Mr. Rice.
Yes. Speaking to Gary specifically, my question is the information that you are gathering. How are you documenting the information? Or are you documenting the information so that that information is readily available for future facility directors?
It will be done building by building, component by component. And yes, it will be on a file, so everybody will be able to see that,
Yeah, I
including
wanna be
pictures.
sure that we have this
Oh, yeah.
information moving
We'll be
forward.
going through and, if you will, taking the rough draft and making it into something that's,
Yeah, what Gary and I thought about is we will be issuing a book that has all that data in there. And then we're gonna upload it on the web also.
Yeah, and the reason I say that is because when we look at the dam and the relationship of one specific person in the county who's got all of this in their head, you know, I don't want that to become another problem with another
No.
issue.
Oh,
as
no,
well.
No, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
That's what we talked about. We want to provide a document that if you're a brand new commissioner, you can look at it and say, okay, these are the issues we deal with.
Overall
Also, when you come
conditions.
through your budget process, you can look at priorities. I mean, we do have a capital improvement plan, but this goes, I guess, a step beyond that because some of these start off minor things, but if they're not dealt with, they become major things. So we're trying to come up with a preventive maintenance plan.
developing a plan for a proper organized way to improve what we have. A lot of it's just cosmetic, but it can be dealt with in a timely manner.
On
Could
the,
you just remind commissioners to speak in your mic. You're getting calls that they cannot hear you specifically. Commissioners Wessel, Robbins, and actually everyone that's spoken.
I guess on the issue of HR, and I'll give you a technical answer. You as a board did put in the budget, you passed a resolution to implement it as a first. So whether it's me or any administrator, let me speak. It's my job to implement your program. So unless there's changes made, I'm proceeding with implementing an HR position until the board tells me otherwise.
But I hope you'll take my suggestion and see if we might address the grant writing. There's not a full-time job for HR, but there is a full-time job to try to capture available money. And as we look for somebody to fill that HR position, because we're insisting that we do it, let's at least look at a need that we have, an unmet need, and see if we might do that. And an HR person could be a grant writer as well.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll get some applications of people that may have an interest in that.
Well, but I'd like to go more than that. Not an, hopefully we might get one. Let's recruit from it. Let's write that into the job description. Let's be proactive and not see if somebody happens to apply for an HR position that I think we don't need and is interested in doing grants. We might have them tinker with that. No, let's say HR/ capture grant money, available grant money. Those people are out there.
This is an update,
Yeah.
Commissioner Wessel, so it's not a time for
All
argument.
right.
You want to
Well,
have.
wait a minute, you asked.
Don't
you
interrupt me. I
asked-
didn't interrupt you. Please don't interrupt
You
me.
did just.
This is,
interrupt.
no, I did not. You were done.
You asked the question.
No,
Mr.
don't
Chairman.
stop. This is a point of order. You are interrupting me. I'm just saying, put it on the agenda. That's all I'm asking you to do. If you want to have this discussion, put it on the agenda. This is a time for an update, please.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, but
There was a-
Commissioner Robbins has his hand up as well, so he speaks next.
I didn't think I was finished. I was not finished. I made a speech.
Oh, all right, I did.
when Mr. O'Connor spoke about the facilities person, you asked a question and made a suggestion. When Mr. Janik introduced the HR, I asked a question and made a suggestion. I failed to see the difference.
First of all, Commissioner Robbins.
Yes.
So anyway, you will get a full report from Gary. He'll be here. We're shooting for March, depends on how else things go on. Gary's trying to dedicate one day a week, depending on what goes on other places and other projects.
Something about
But,
temperature and winter.
but he is making progress. I've seen the photos. You will get a very visual report.
Yeah, this is the start of it right here.
Thank you very much.
And like I said, Gary has done this for other companies in.
Yes, I
DFW. He
have
has,
large companies as well as I still do it for a lot of the large homes that I take care of and the other businesses. But this is, this place here is one of my number one priorities.
And really, my
Thank
goal
you.
is, once we have this report done, it should be a living document where we update it on a regular basis,
Yes.
depending on how you go forward or restructuring. You always should have a plan in place with facilities. I mean, we're fortunate these buildings were new at one time, so we could be more reactive. But as you know, if you look at the bills, we're getting more issues here.
Yeah.
And we need to have a different approach to these. It's a very complex buildings here.
It really is. The whole campus, as you know, anytime you turn power onto something, it starts to deteriorate from that moment on. But like I said, it's a matter of keeping an eye on things.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm more than happy to do.
And I definitely agree with your comment about the dam, but also just as critical is our septic sewer system. We have a very complex system here.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we have one person. Now, he is training Dwayne to get into it, but we need to always have a backup plan because we can't be contingent on one person having all the knowledge. Okay,
And I would just like to say that, I used to work for and build McDonald's, and their policy was to remodel every 10 years because of wear and tear.
yeah,
So 10 years is really, that's when things really start to show, and we are over that.
we're way beyond that, yeah,
Pushing 17 years now.
Right.
yeah. And my
For this-
third, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. For this
So-
building, then that's 04 back at that sheriff's department. Sorry about that.
No, so I just want to give you an update on that, and you'll be hearing more about this. And my third and final goal is the ARPA funding. And I want to compliment all of you. We are a leader in at least in Northern Michigan and taking this process. And we talked about having another meeting beyond January 19th. I sent you each an email. I got a couple of responses. So it appears that from the responses I got, the 25th will not work of January. But at least the response I got, people seem to be flexible on the 27th, 28th, and 31st. And is there a preference on when we
Do you
meet?
want to pick that date right now?
If you don't mind,
Or
we don't need a board motion or anything. I'm just trying to,
do you want to pick it?
I know Tuesday, I don't know the date. I think it's that Tuesday.
the 25th?
Is that the 25th?
Yeah,
Two of us board members have other meetings that same day.
yeah, I had several people respond, they have conflicts, so that day's out.
Yeah.
So it appears that will work based on the feedback I received so far. The Thursday, the 27th will work in the morning, anytime on the 28th, and in the afternoon on Monday, January 31st.
Any of those times will work for me.
Does anybody have a conflict?
I do with a couple of them. The 31st is really the best for me.
Okay. With the afternoon at 1 o'clock on 31st? We're meeting on the 19th,
Right.
That'll work for me.
Monday.
Monday.
All right, let me send out a reminder of that. You can check your calendars. But
Well,
was,
did you say afternoon?
yeah, 1 o'clock.
Okay. Does anybody have a conflict with that? 1 o'clock on the 31st?
Rick's gonna check.
Yeah, well,
He said he could make it work.
I'll make it work.
okay, so we'll go with the 30, so we'll meet on the 19th. And I'm thinking we'll be done with the presentations on 19th. So I'm thinking you may want to have a special meeting on the 31st if you want to start making decisions. You don't have to, but we've made as a committee as a whole, which I think worked out well for the presentations. But I'm guessing at the end of the 19th, we'll be done with the presentations.
Right.
What time on the 19th?
Is it 10 o'clock?
10 to
10 to 2.
I think it was 10, wasn't it?
10 to 2.
Yeah, I think it was 10 o'clock. Yeah.
I think a special meeting would be in order because we would want to make some decisions.
You don't have to make decisions, but if you do want
If
to.
we- Right. If we post it as a special, if we do want to make.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
they have ability. at that
Yeah.
time to do so.
Because like I said, I think we'll be done with the presentation and everything. All right.
Get the signatures.
Yeah, well, we'll take care of that, but, all right, we'll go with that. So thank you very much. And those are my 3 goals for this upcoming year. And actually, my goal is to have these done by March.
Does anybody have any other questions and my concerns?
I would like to volunteer to meet with you and talk about how we might modify an HR job description to include grant writing.
I'll be glad to get input from any of you. All right, thank you. And I'll
Thank you.
personally keep Jerry Coleman and his wife in your prayers, Denise. It's not a secret, she's been struggling. She took a turn for the worse this weekend. And so it's been a difficult challenge for both Jerry, his wife, and his family. So keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Thanks, Gary.
All right, then that would bring us to the Leelanau Conservation District update. You can say it now.
I would really support having an HR person with grant writing capabilities as well instead of contract work. Let's give them the work that we have. So I support that idea.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to let you know what the Conservation District has done in the past and is planning to do in the future. As Chet mentioned, the county has gone through some issues with personnel, and so has the Conservation District. In August, we hired Colin Ossie as a natural resource specialist, soil erosion technician, basically due to really high activity in the soil erosion control permit program. And Colin has taken that over.
Sorry, may I call him Rossi?
Ossie, I'm sorry.
OC.
O
OC.
O
Thank you.
OOSSE.
There you go.
Thank you.
It's hard not to say Ossie.
OC, thank you.
And I'll let Colin kind of introduce himself and to you and let him, tell you what he's doing and what he has done.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm Colin. Like was said, hired in August. Before this, I graduated from Michigan State, studied plant biology in 2019, and went on to work with the Forest Service through AmeriCorps out in Nevada. Came back here, did some landscaping, worked at different nurseries, some plant sales, things like that. But really seeking a job in conservation, and for a few years of sending out applications to Leelanau and Grand Traverse and all over the place, I finally landed this job and I was happy to take it. Since I got here, Steve Christensen and Buzz have been a big help in kind of getting me caught up to speed with what the soil erosion control program does and how the permitting process works and how it all interacts. And so I'm no expert, but I'm picking up on it so far. This last year, we've done over 650 permits, and that's January to end of December. I was on for only the last third of those or so, but it was definitely busy towards the end of the summer there. And I think that's 50 more than the year before. So it's still growing. What I've been working on as permitting has kind of slowed down due to the cold weather is really trying to kind of streamline our process for it. So less paper, more digital work. I've built kind of this online map for our purposes that show all of our active permits. We've got a couple of tablets for Steve and myself to utilize in the field with cellular connections, so we can always be interacting with what's going on in the office, and it's easier to gain information when we're out looking around and seeing what's going on there. So that's what I've been doing. I've also picked up some work with the website and our social media stuff, and Ellie has been helping with that too. So it's been fun, and I'm looking forward to the next year.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Also, with our personnel situation, as you probably all know, Camera Ross, our longtime, I think 7 or 8 years working for us as the Forest Assistance Program Forester. Retired at the end of September. So we hired Ellie, and she's been working out very well. I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi, so my name is Ellie Johnson, and I'm the lucky person to try to fill Cam Ross's shoes, which I'm taller than her, but it turns out they're huge, and she knew pretty much everybody in the county. So I service Leelanau County and Benzie and Grand Traverse, so working with those other 2 conservation districts as well and getting to know everybody and what they all do. My position is kind of like an educated middleman or like a liaison for private landowners, depending on like questions that they have. I might be able to be the one to answer them, or I'm sort of the person to refer them to other natural resource professionals, like consulting foresters and arborists and things, or even if they need like a soil permit and stuff, I'm sort of that like gateway to what they might need. I'm a free resource because I'm grant funded. So I do a lot of site visits and answer a lot of very wholesome questions. I get a lot of pictures of bugs. And different things.
I'm sorry,
Bugs, different bugs and insects. Yeah. Yeah. Or even just if someone like, they're like, what's this mushroom in my yard? It's not always about trees. So it's very exciting, kind of daunting because everybody has a lot of questions. So yeah, a lot of my job is also hosting educational workshops for landowners. And for right now, a lot of those are virtual, just to avoid things getting canceled and stuff. But yeah, so far so good. So if you have questions on bugs, I might be able to help. Thank you.
Yeah, Ellie has a master's degree in forestry from Clemson, so that's.
Well, welcome to both of you. It's wonderful to have you join the staff, and you're right. I know you do beautifully, but Cameron's shoes were very large. Colin, and I'm not sure I'm Callien.
Collin.
Collin.
Yes.
Close. When you were mentioning streamlining the permitting process, which is excellent, are you thinking of putting that online as our building safety has done, so that people have the opportunity to access it that way?
Potentially in the future. I think it definitely could get there. Right now, what I'm working on is a way just in office for us to enter information quicker and then have access to it in the field. That seemed to be the most pressing thing without altering too much at once. If we decide that that's working really well, and we've kind of started putting it into effect already this year, keeping the old system as well, just as we're trying things out, so we have a backup. But eventually, I think it could transition really well to posting that application on our website, so people could just enter their information right from our website rather than downloading a PDF or printing it out and writing on it and then sending it back to us. So it would both streamline it for us and the customers or the permittees looking to get those permits. Eventually, I'm not sure what the policy is on the publicity of those permits and things, but if it's something that the public wants to see that and we are able to, I think it would be doable in the future. Does that answer your question?
It sure does.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Colin has been instrumental in moving us along in that direction. We're working on it and hoping to get there. Colin is quite expertise, I would say, in what he's doing. As an example, within 2 weeks when he was hired, he actually took the certification test and passed it in flying colors. Anybody else we've hired, it's taken months to get them to take the certification test. He's very intelligent, and we're appreciating everything he does. Along with that, we've lost our communication specialist. She also works for the Benzie Conservation District in that same capacity, and they put her on for more hours, so she dropped down. Colin is taking over that portion of it, keeping our website up to speed and our social media stuff up to speed too. So that's working out very well. Along with that, we missed by 1 day having another new employee here. She starts tomorrow. We have taken over the fiduciary for the Meek program. That's the Michigan Agricultural Environmental Assurance Program. It's another state grant. It's been held by Grand Traverse. They've had 2 Meek techs down there. One serving Grand Traverse and Kalkaska, and one serving Leelanau and Benzie. I've always thought it was kind of silly that they should be the fiduciary for a tech that served Leelanau and Benzie. With a couple of changes in personnel down there, it came open for us to take over that position. So we have hired Samantha Peterson. She will be starting actually tomorrow. So we're looking forward to that. Along with that, other grants that we have, the state has finally came through with some operational funding for districts throughout the state. It's been, I believe, 11 years since we had any operational funding from the state of Michigan. And so we're pleased to be getting that. That's $40,000 per district throughout the state. And it's allowing us to do some things with our staff and with our programs that we haven't been able to do before, providing some assistance with health insurance and hopefully being able to, even if they continue it, it's a 1-year program. All of these grants are 1 year, but have been continued for several years, both MEEP and FAP, or the forestry program. And so we're hoping that will continue into the future and that we can set up a retirement program also, and be getting in some young blood into the system. With that, as Colin mentioned, again, we had a record year for soil erosion permit applications, about 50 more than we had last year. Last year, we attributed all to, or a lot of it, to the shoreline erosion issue, where maybe a third of the permits that came in last year were shoreline related. Not so this year. That's probably not even a tenth of the permits that came in. So there's just a whole lot of construction activity going on in the county. With forestry, we did mostly through CAMA. She worked through September. We had 86 site visits, covered over 2,700 acres, and referrals to consultants, about 97 consultant referrals from her. We had a slow start with our no-till drill in the spring, very few rentals. Not sure what brought that on. I think a lot of it was the weather in the spring, but in the fall that picked up, and the cedar was out every day in September. So we were happy to see that pick up and see it getting used again. Our seedling sales were excellent again this year. We sold over 2,700 plants, seedlings and beachgrass plants to around 155 different customers that participated in that program. Native plant sale, again, the largest native plant sale we've had since my 13 years with the district. 3,000 plus plants sold and 38 customers participated. So it's been a very good year. We're looking forward to another good year this year with, like I say, some good young blood in the system.
Any questions?
Well, thank you very much.
Sure enough.
Same thing.
Well, just one last question.
Yeah.
How would you compare your ping pong skills compared to your 2G employees? I watched them play.
I have not challenged them.
Have you?
I could take them on.
He's not ready.
When you have that match, could you invite me? I've seen the two of them play.
Uh-oh. Well, I haven't, so.
We'll videotape that with the commissioners.
Maybe. Thank you. Thank you.
Russ, will you stay for?
Yeah.
Okay. thank you.
Yeah.
I believe Mr. Ruth is online here for his presentation. He was unable to come in person today. Okay, is that for veterans? Yeah. Michael, are you there, Michael?
I am. I'm right here.
All right. Thank you. Good.
Um,
Thank you for joining us virtually.
Yes, well, I'm happy to be here virtually. It sucks that I can't be there, but it's probably best because I tested positive for COVID. So I'm stuck in my house, which I don't like. I'd rather be there in person. So is someone controlling the report there then?
Yeah, Laurel has it up on the
Okay,
screen.
cool. All right. Well, what I put together is usually in September-ish, I usually come to before you and present kind of the things we've been doing. As most of you know, that we have an agreement with York County to provide veteran services. It's right next door to Chet's office. And that's what this report is a little about. Can you, next slide, please? So all this saying is it's just compromised of what our office puts together and the VA and how it kind of affects the veterans and your county. Next slide, please. So our office was actually founded in '91 in Grand Traverse County. We do have 7 committee members that are appointed by our Board of Commissioners per state statute. And then per our MOU agreement with Leelanau, you guys, the commissioners, appoint a perspective or representative to our board that comes to our meetings monthly. And if they can't make it in person, they come virtually or on the phone. And they're all welcome to provide input. They are an ex officio member of the board. Their job is to provide input to how we're, providing services, take information back to the board or chat or whoever, and kind of, be eyes and ears even closer for your county. Next slide, please. So I always like to put this on a 3-year graph. As you know, it really doesn't do itself justice because of the pandemic. Obviously, we all know that the numbers are lower, but you see in 2020 in January, that these are things I want to bring to your attention. The gray, which is 2020, not 21, the numbers were significantly higher in January and September than other months. And then if you look at 21, the last quarter, how much higher it was, that's due to a grant. You may have heard stuff on the radio advertising the office there. And not only on the radio, but it's in the newspaper every time the newspaper goes out. I think it's a full page black and white ad once a month. And then after that, it's a 5x5 or 5x6 advertisement. And it was great because as soon as it came out in the paper, like that day, we had people calling us wanting to set up appointments because they didn't know about the office or anybody being there. So that's worked really great. So next slide, please. So Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency, they don't have service officers that really come out to counties. Their job is just to provide funding sources for counties. And Michigan Veterans Coalition which is a nonprofit agency that is like VFW, American Legion, American Veterans, stuff like that. They provide funding for those organizations to come out and provide claim assistance as well. So what the trust fund is, it started out as a $50 million fund back after World War II to help wartime veterans and their families with financial assistance. It has since grown to over $71 million in the last year. And this helps counties like Leelanau, Grand Traverse, and others to apply for financial assistance that would not come out of our budgets. We are trust fund agents. We take the applications in the office, and then there's committee members that we have to call and have them go over the applications, whether on phone, or in person. Those are appointed by the MVAA and with recommendations through county sorry, not county meaning Board of Commissioners, but the County Office of Veterans Affairs. So what happens is you'll see here the number of applications that have been gone through in the last year. Again, this is money that is provided financial assistance outside of your budget and due to using the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund. Next slide, please. So you might look at that and go, holy cow, $32,000 for shelter. Man, we helped a lot of people. But if you looked on the previous slide, it shows that there was only one grant. And this shows the power of the trust fund, where again, if we were utilizing Leelanau Veterans Affairs budget to provide shelter assistance for $32,000, I would probably guess that it wouldn't be allowed or approved. Where the trust fund, they really have no limits on the amount of money they will give. This application for the $32,000 was someone's house was flooded, and what happened is they didn't have the insurance covered some of it, but didn't cover some things. So the trust fund, if it's emergent and unforeseen situation, it doesn't matter how much someone makes or what they're worth. If there's an emergent situation that they can't handle, the trust fund will review it. And in this case, something over $3,500 goes automatically down to the state committee board, and they make the decision. And in this case, I think it actually got denied at the beginning, but then further review, they did say that it was emergent and found a way to pay the money to the veteran. And again, they don't pay directly to the veteran, they pay to a vendor, and the veteran never sees the money directly. So this is the great power of using the trust fund. For comparisons, when I started 4 years ago in Grand Traverse, we had $35,000 a year that was budgeted for our financial assistance. And since then, I've been able to lower that down to $20,000 a year for financial assistance, because we lean on the trust fund so much, and they've expanded helping veterans even more. Because again, 4 years ago, it was only a $1,200 approval amount at the county level, meaning the committee could approve $1,200. And now it's over $3,500 that the committee can approve. And that's the trust fund committee, people locally. So it's really great program to help veterans in the counties. Next slide, please. This just goes to show a comparison and an update of the number of burials and the costs associated with them in your county. You'll see there that you do have a denied application. Denied application could be because they were peacetime, because the state statute does say you have to be a wartime era, not a combat, but a wartime era veteran or spouse for the county to fund this. And it's a $300 at a time burial expense or a $50 marker replacement. I can tell you that there are counties within the last year that are now reviewing that because some people say it's only $300 and my goodness, a burial costs way more than that. But we haven't had that conversation in our county, nor have I had it with your county. Because that would be dependent on upon what you wanted to do or how you felt with that. In my opinion, the VA does provide burial assistance for those who are service-connected death. But the downside is if you don't really have a service-connected death or you're getting any money from the VA, they don't really pay for anything other than a flag and a marker. So next slide, please. So this is the new mobile service office that was purchased last year for Grand Traverse County. We were seeking a regional grant. We did not get it. Our commissioners approved it to move forward, whether we get the grant or not. This was originally supposed to be here the middle of December. Last I talked to the owner of the company, it was supposed to be mid to late January. I've asked him last week for an update and I haven't heard from him, which is odd because he's usually pretty quick. It's a 2021 Mercedes-Benz Transit, and I did not provide pictures of the inside, but it's totally constructed to have basically like 2 offices in it, rotating captain's chairs, build out for, you know, a laptop with Wi-Fi, printers. And then here's the sample of the wrap that's going to be put on it. Up at the top, it's going to list basic services like financial assistance, claims assistance. It cost about $149,000. We provided the down payment to get it going. And once it's delivered, we drop the other 60% to pay for it. We have enough funds to pay for that, and that's why the commissioners didn't balk at whether we got the regional grant or not. The regional 2 grant would have covered 10 counties from Manistee all the way up to Sheboygan. So that was the first premise from looking at this. And really what we're going to do now is, again, it's just going to be Grand Traverse, Leelanau area. We talked to Peshabe Town government, and it's going to be parked outside of there as well. And it's going to move around where it's going to be. It's not going to always be at one location in each area. And the hope is to, you know, be more visible to veterans and their families. Because again, we still are on TV, radio, newspaper, internet, and very occasionally, or very frequently, sorry, we have people come in and go, I had no idea that these services were available to me, and there was an office to help me. So we need to just keep getting the word out at whatever avenue is possible. Next slide, please. So for your county, please focus on the orange bar at the bottom. So the VA puts out what's called a GDX report every year, but the downside is we will not get 2021's report until about May or June. So I can't give you this year or this previous year's report, but what I can do is stay abreast as far as the previous year's report. So when I did this, 2020 had been out since June, and you can see the progression we've been making with filing claims and with veterans and spouses. Because we went from 4.34 to 4.95 in compensation and pension payments to veterans and their surviving spouses or dependents. And we've been raising that all the while veterans are passing away. So I think that speaks volumes of the work that's being done. I mean, you can look at up at the top at the blue line for Grand Traverse, how much we've been able to impact there. We have about 4 times the amount of veterans that Leelanau does. So that can tell you why there's a larger amount going on there. Next slide, please. So does anybody have any questions over my report?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Michael. And thank you for all you do. I had a couple of questions. And I'll go right back up to the report. On the van, you covered most of my questions. So it's going to be used as a tool to basically recruit veterans to your services, which is great. And will it be, and when you come to Leelanau, will Jim work out of the van, or will he come inside? Like if he brings it here?
No, he'll be working out of the van. So the person that comes to Leelanau every Tuesday, Chris, he'll still be there. That will not change. We have another person who will be in the van that's currently staffed. We're not adding staff, who will be driving around and representing in the van as well. So it'll be an additional outlet for veterans. And that person will help push people to that county office every Tuesday. And if they can't make Tuesdays, they can push them in the van and take them, or come down to Grand Traverse and meet with them.
Super. Okay, so try to hit large populations, festivals, that sort of thing to be seen. Is it part of it, or?
What's your question?
Like, will you hit festivals or wherever there are large populations?
So yes, I mean, like times of now, it will be in like grocery store parking lots where people go to, hardware stores. It's going to move around. And yes, when there's festivals, fairs, other things going on, it will be a part of those as long as those festivals allow us to be there. Absolutely. It's going to be wherever we can be seen.
Okay, great. And then my final question until I had one with the contract, but when you were going over your Leelanau Trust Fund dollars, and you mentioned the shelter, and there's a little bit for utilities, but I was surprised there wasn't anything under transportation or medical, because that's probably the thing I hear about the most with veterans needs.
Mm-hmm.
But is all that covered under other funding? Because I know that we are assisting them that way.
So I can tell you that this is again through the trust fund, not through your county funding. I don't have the numbers for what has been done through the county. I didn't have them with me for this report. So that trust fund is for larger amounts. Transportation, usually transportation grants are for like repairs to car or gas cards. We don't have a lot of those requests that come through your county. We do have some gas cards that are through the county funding that we have that are at our office or that are at the office in Leelanau that Chris hands out. But far and few between do we have requests for those. Medical stuff, sometimes that's been prescriptions and stuff, but we haven't, again, had too many of those because most of those are covered through the VA health coverage. They can seek it through there.
Fantastic. And is there still a need for volunteers to drive veterans down to the hospital in Flint?
Yeah, so it's Saginaw, Ann Arbor, and Detroit. And yes, through the DAV program, they're always needing volunteers. I can tell you that it's not as easy as going, I want to volunteer and drive, because that program is funded by the VA. The VA gives them a credit card to pay for oil, fuel, and you're supposed to follow a regimented route there and back. You're not supposed to like stop off at the grocery store and mall or anything. So when you want to volunteer, you have to go down to the VA, get a physical done, and something as diabetes type 2 might knock the person out of not being able to drive, because the VA looks at anything that can help and health wise with the driver could endanger the person being transported. So it's a very rigorous program just to get involved with it. But always, if anybody wants to volunteer, they can call our office and we can get them in touch with the right person to volunteer for that program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you, Michael, for joining us today and for all the work you do, and particularly for joining us when you're a little under the weather. We appreciate it. Couple of questions, just so I have a better understanding. I appreciated the questions that Commissioner Butler asked because I had some similar, but it sounds like you really want to ramp up visibility with the, and access with the mobile
Yes.
service. Will you be offering all of the same services through this? I mean, what type of services are you really prepared to assist people with?
So we will have food cards, gas cards, and applications to do trust fund or financial assistance applications on the mobile unit. They will have a full Wi-Fi internet access, computer scanner, printer to do claims just like the person in the office would be able to. There's nothing that I think that we can't cover in the mobile office because we're going to basically have all the same supplies and access mobile that we do in the office. So we're going to try and mirror everything.
Excellent, excellent. A couple of other questions. I'm assuming on your last graph, the total comp and PEN means compensation and pension. What's the PEN?
I couldn't hear you.
On your final graph, your chart, it says total comp, COMP, and PEN, PEN payments. Is that compensation and pension, or what is the PEN?
That is correct. Compensation and pension. And for those who don't know, compensation is if a veteran was incurred a disability through their service in the military, that's compensation. It's disability compensation. And pension is actually called non-service connected pension, meaning because of a veteran could be, it's always income and asset based. Let me start there. And let's say that someone, for basic purposes, a veteran makes less than $13,000 a year and has disabilities, they can pay or they can apply for non-service connected pension and get paid up to that limit. Now, that's basic pension. If they are in a nursing home, assisted living, or in home getting medical care, then they can apply and get even a further benefit. A widow can receive up to about $1,300 and a veteran a little over $1,900 a month to help pay for that care.
Those dollars come out of the trust fund?
No, those are federal VA dollars. Those are monies provided by the federal U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs.
There is really quite a significant difference between Leelanau resident supply, and of course Grand Traverse is larger, but I'm hopeful that your mobile will actually help that situation. The last question I had is, who makes the decision on you mentioned you have a local committee for the Leland Trust Fund. Is that decision as to denial or approval made here, or is it made somewhere else at the state level?
Sure. So the committee members, there's 4 total, and they encompass Grand Traverse and Leelanau County both. The state sees us basically as one committee because of our MOU agreement between the counties. And those are just people that are appointed by the trust fund, that were recommended by, say, our office or other veterans organizations, because anybody can throw their hat in the ring and be appointed. So what happens is, if it's $3,500 or less, we call those people and they either come in and review the application, or they'll sit over the phone with me and go through the application and approve it or deny it. If they deny it, I go to the next person, because I call person by person, and I have to have at least 2 people approve it. If nobody approves it, then I can send it down to the state, and the state committee can vote to overturn that. But if it's under $3,500, rarely do they do that. Only in matters of it over $3,500.
So as I'm looking at your graph there, you've got withdrawn, approved, partial approval, disapproved, for people assisted, and number of paid grants. So of course you've got 9 people, or actually 5 people in 21 who were assisted, and only 1 grant. So your assisted means you reviewed the paperwork. it doesn't mean that they were actually assisted in some other ways because they didn't get the grant.
So the 5 people means there was 5 people in the household between the 2 applications. You know, and what happens is, and this is information I get from the state, from their trust fund at the end of the year, of how many applications were actually sent to them, how many were reviewed, and then on the application, it asks for how many people are in the household. So they keep a track of how many people, when they award or deny a grant, how many people were affected by that grant.
Okay, so this shows of that grant that was awarded, 5 people in the household were assisted.
Right.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you for your questions.
Thank you, Michael, for being here, and thank you for your report. I'm asking you for a subjective response because it must be subjective, I think, but we had 1 trust fund application and 104, and you said it in your report, only 104 visits. So are we meeting the need, or do we have a ways to go?
I think it's a work in progress right now. I think we're meeting the needs of those who know the office is there and are coming into the office. Again, we're still unknown to a lot of people. Every office can tell you within the state of Michigan, Illinois, or wherever, that there are always people who don't know about our office. And they find out from meetings in McDonald's or the coffee shop or the barber or wherever, and they go, I didn't know that office existed. So I think we're meeting the needs of those who know the office is there. And again, it's always work in trying to get the word out to help other people that just don't know what there is. Because again, you have veterans who have maybe were in Vietnam. A gentleman last year came in, he says, I was just at my accountant and I didn't know I could get benefits. I said, well, what benefits are you looking for? Let's sit down and talk. He goes, well, I was sitting with my accountant going over taxes. And she said, are you 100% permanent and total veteran? And he goes, I am a veteran, but no, I'm not disabled. Why do you ask? She said, well, my husband's this, and in the state of Michigan, 100% disabled, permanent total, you're exempt from paying property taxes. He goes, whoa, how do I get that? I didn't know that was possible. So he came to my office, sat down and helped him out. Again, it's strange and wonderful how we get all our veterans, because it's not always through us, but it's word of mouth. And veteran to veteran, or veteran through TV, radio, whatever, festivals. We just have to shotgun everything to try and get more people in. That's just my opinion.
Thank you. Have you reached out to Leelanau Christian Neighbors and DHHS and local service groups to pass the word, or are you not getting much assistance from them?
Well, I can tell you some of that stuff has slowed down, like in person to person. Our gentleman there, Chris, who is in there every Tuesday, he works very well with senior services, because there's sometimes someone comes in for senior services and they will walk the veteran down there to Chris and go, hey, here's an issue. This veteran is suffering. How can you help? And then they'll work together to try and help the veteran or the family of the veteran. We work with anybody and everybody, and we do sit there and correspond with people of DHHS, because they will ask us about someone's entitlement to benefits and try and help them help a veteran however we can. So it's still a work in progress, very much.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Mike. Looking at your charts here, you're talking about 104 visits. So that's 1 a week. You know, you're up here in our county, so that's about 2 a week. With this new van you're looking at, hopefully the numbers will rise here, the more exposure you get. But are you considering using that van, since it's a mobile office, you could use that up here in our county to get exposure for these people that?
I can barely hear you. Was your question is, I'm going to use the mobile unit up to your county for increased exposure?
Yeah. I mean, right now our numbers are 104 is what you're telling us. And that's about 2 a week. When this van is up and running, could it be a mobile office up here and go to different areas of the county or exposure to see if you get your numbers up?
Yeah, so pre-COVID, that 104 is low pre-COVID, because pre-COVID it was higher. When I started 4 years ago, those numbers were under 90 a year, and we've been able to push them up. If it wasn't for October, where the newspaper and radio started kicking, we had some days we had 5 appointments a day. So if it wasn't for that end of quarter grant that pushed out the advertisement, those numbers would be even lower, because you're right. There's sometimes we have 2 or 3 people, but we've had up to 5 people a time in there recently. And yeah, that mobile unit is going to be up in your county all around. We're going to have set places where it's going. It's going to be in the newspaper. It's going to be advertised. That way people can find out about it and show up. The other great thing is, as you see by the pictures of it, it's attention getter. So a veteran or a family of a veteran should be able to tell what the heck it is by looking at it and maybe interested and come approach it. It's not like we're going to just park and hope people come up to it. You know, obviously in the winter, it's a little more difficult, but we're going to put stuff out to advertise to come in or come to the thing. And again, we're going to try and get the word out through any organization of where it's going to be and what it's there for, to help reach more veterans.
I guess what I was looking at, you know, with our townships, you know, they have newsletters and everything goes out to their residents, and, you know, maybe coordinate something with them. They advertise and maybe you sit in their lot for that one day or whatever.
Absolutely. You know, to that point, when I filed the grant to do regional, that was in my grant to talk to every township when it goes to all these different places and have it at the township hall, because people come there to pay bills or do business, kind of like the county building, but there's already somebody there, you know, and it's got to go where there's people seeing it. Parking it just to park it is not our intent. Our intent is to boost the numbers, get associated with more veterans in your area for sure. And not just right there in town where the building is, but move it way outside the county, away from the office where people might not be traveling to come into the office there at the county building. You know, I mean, it's to reach people.
Thank you.
Thank you for this important service and for your explanations, Michael. I just need to have a sense of, you had 104 people come in. I hear there's a difference between the trust fund and the other things you do. So what kinds of, and those 103 other visits, are you handing out gas cards? Are you helping people with their benefits? What services are those people getting, since only one person got the trust fund?
Sure. So majority of our visits are about compensation and pension, whether it be a claim for someone who's in Vietnam exposed to Agent Orange and might have a disability from that, to a widow who's getting dependent indemnity compensation for her or his deceased veteran, and helping them with the paperwork to file for it. Or maybe they got a letter from the VA and they don't understand what it's about, helping them understand that letter. That's the majority of our work, is really filing and getting people benefits. Again, I don't see a lot of gas cards, grocery cards come through your county.
So, and just to clarify, you mentioned that the wording you used when you were talking about the burial grant. Do we have any ability to raise that at the county level, or is that something that happens within the VA? Or could we say, let's raise it to 500?
So the county burial allowance is a state statute that counties, and don't quote me on the phrase because I'm not being specific, I'm paraphrasing it. It's basically that counties can provide, or I don't even think it says must, but I think it says can provide a $300 burial benefits for wartime veterans. Again, that's a base and a minimum. There are other counties I can tell you that have raised theirs and they provide $1,000 per burial. Is that my recommendation? You know, I don't really have an opinion on that. That would be on what your county, you as commissioners wish to provide or wish to increase to, or stay the same. So I take it, and so have other commissioners, as that 300 is a minimum to provide.
And that money comes from the county?
That's correct. That comes out of the funding from Veterans Affairs. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or statements? Well, thank you very much, Michael. We really appreciate that report.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. I appreciate your time today.
So I think we just should take a 5-minute break here. And it's about 10:30, and that's when we usually break, and try to be back at 10:30. Sorry to interrupt. I thought you were done.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to our action items, and first up, we have Bob Hall. I believe he's on.
I don't know if it's working.
Oh, yes, here we go. For MMRMA. Go ahead, Bob. We can't hear you.
Oh, I think you're muted.
No, you're muted. You have to unmute
Okay.
yourself.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I thought I was muted on your end. So my name is Robert Hauk, and I am the risk manager for the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority, or MIRMA, as we're referred to. And we provide your property and liability insurance for the county. MMRMA is a member-owned and operated organization. We've been around for about, excuse me, we've been around for over 40 years. We work specifically with municipalities in the state of Michigan. We've got 400 plus members. 68 of the 83 counties, including several of your neighbors, are part of the MMRMA. I've personally been working with the county for, I believe it is now 16 years, and quite familiar with your exposures and as I've been working with you. So I believe there's in your packet some information that's been included. So if you're able to see that, there is a letter that is used as a summary. And on that letter, it just kind of reviews very briefly what your coverage pricing is for this year. Chet asked me just to give you a very brief overview of who we are, what we do, and what the policy looks like for this year. So that first page that you have, you'll see that I'll go right to the pricing portion of it because that's what everybody always wants to hear. You'll see that your cost of insurance is around $194,000 this year. You'll see that there is a $30,000 contribution for your retention fund. And the retention fund is a separate segregated account that MMRMA holds for its members, where we put your contributions, and it's your money, so that if you were ever to leave the MMRMA, those funds would go with you. But otherwise, they're used to pay your deductibles and self-insured retentions. So the total contribution that MMRMA is asking for this year is $224,000. Now, compared to last year, that's about a $2,000 decrease. If you go to, I believe it's the next page of your packet, you'll see what we call our net asset distribution options page. And let me explain the net asset distribution to you. So as a member of MMRMA, a longstanding member, there are several options and benefits. One of those is the net asset distribution program. So MMRMA looks at the end of each fiscal year at how much surplus we have left over. So, and surplus is defined by whatever our income is minus what we've paid out in claims. And so the majority of that surplus comes from our investment income. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of $500 million invested in the market. So we are very financially secure in the support of our members. And if we make just 5% on that money in a given year, that's $25 million. So that is where the majority, 80 to 90% of all of the net asset distribution that we return to our members comes from. The rest of it is made up in, if we're doing a good job in helping our members reduce their risks, comes in the difference between the premium and what we've paid out in claims. So you'll see that you're getting back this year, your share of the money that's coming back to you is $111,000 and some change. So in comparison, if you go, I believe it's to the next page in your packet, you'll see a history that shows since the beginning of that program, what has been returned to you. And I believe the total, you've received $1.4 million from MMRMA since this program began. So this year is still a pretty strong year in terms of the return. How do we determine what you're going to get back? How do we decide, if we're looking at the pot, who gets what? So there's really three primary things that we look at. The first is your longevity with the MMRMA. So how many consecutive years have you been with us? We also look at your losses. Losses play into it fairly heavily. The more losses you have, the more it will impact on the amount of money that you're getting back. And then we also look at your premium. So those three things really determine how much you're going to get back. At the end of each fiscal year, our finance committee makes a recommendation to our board, which is made up of people just like yourself, that then determine, how much money they're going to reinvest in the market, how much they're going to give back to the members. Once they have that number, they shove it in a black box, and based on those three criteria that I just mentioned, it spits out a number. And so your number for this year is $111,000. You'll also see that MMRMA has a second program. It's our RAP avoidance program, risk avoidance program for our members. This is also unique to the MMRMA as an insuring entity, right? In the form of providing grants to our members in order to try and reduce your risk for liability or for property claims. So I've provided to Chet in the past a list of all those different types of grants that you can apply for. They're typically a matching type of a grant. Examples would be, and the majority of these grants are for law enforcement. And that is primarily because most of our losses, somewhere between 60 and 70% of all the losses for MMRMA occur in the area of law enforcement. It's just because of the nature of what they do. And so it might be stop sticks, it may be tasers. I think, if you're looking at that history that I've provided to you, you'll see that the RAP grant history also for the county. And in 2017, MMRMA provided almost $42,000 to the county for digital cameras and security. So, and you can kind of look at that as you'll see the different types of grants that the county has qualified for. So I always encourage my members. I work with approximately 26 of the counties that we have to apply often. I mean, it's a fairly easy grant process. There's only a couple pages that you fill out. You submit it to the MMRMA. The committee meets on a quarterly basis, and they'll give you a quick yes or a no. So with that, that is a very high level overview. I was asked to keep it brief, but I want to open it up for questions. I would just ask that you speak up because I am having a difficult time hearing the commissioners.
Any questions? No.
I was here to make a motion.
Oh, okay. Well, I had one question for him. Do you have a total of the number of grants or the amount of grants that have been granted back to the Leelanau County?
If you look on that third page that's in your packet, you'll see that, and it actually bleeds over, I believe, into a fourth page. There's a third and a fourth page in my presentation materials that has a total, and that total was
89,494.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, I didn't see. I was looking at the other one. Thank you.
Yes.
And just to follow that up, Todd Rouse has done an excellent job. Most of the grants have been from Todd for items that we would probably have to pay ourselves. But he's been very proactive. I think he's come to board on a pretty regular basis for those RAP grants.
Commissioner Wessel.
Yes, I move to recommend that the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners waive its policy on bid requirements and approve the 2022 renewal for property and casualty insurance between Leelanau County and the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority, the amount of $224,779. Funds to come from account 830.865-5954.000.
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Thank you very much, Bob. We really appreciate it.
All right, thank you all. Hopefully next year I'll be able to see you in person. Everybody stay healthy.
You too.
Thank you for your business.
All right, so then we move on to the substance abuse block grant.
Yeah, and this is just an update because literally as we speak, there's a conference call going on and Laurel Evans is representing me. So the mini version is during one of our substance abuse meetings last fall, the regional substance abuse coalition was represented and they informed us there's the Michigan Prevention Network. And with COVID, they had funds they were willing to allocate to local entities to help them study the impact of COVID on its population. And so we as a coalition obviously been struggling how to proceed with COVID. We know it has an impact on the children and so forth. So Rebecca Tenbrook, our coordinator, wrote a small, simple request for funding. And we were notified last week, they approved $50,000 for a study. Now, I don't have all the details yet, so it's only on Jen's date, we can just move it forward. But Laurel is with Rebecca and the state officials at 10:30 on the conference call, to work out the details. So I'm not sure if it has to come through the county as a grant or if it could be separate through the LIFT organization or the details. We're not sure if it's actually a grant or if they will pay for the study. So still working all that out. But it's just an example of the efforts that because of a dialogue we had here in this room with our members, that the idea came forward about this application. Rebecca followed up on it and we were quite pleasantly surprised to receive 50,000 mini grant from the state. So we're working on the details because I don't have the grant. I'm not even sure it's a grant, to be honest with you. We were awarded $50,000 to do a study of the impact of COVID in Leelanau County through the substance abuse coalition. So it's a positive development. So hopefully by next Tuesday, I'll have more details on whether we have to accept it. It's not a matching grant. I know there's no funds that we have to allocate to it, but I'll get more details in terms of the technical requirements, whether it has to come through the county and kind of go through LIFT or a separate entity. So we'll work that out by next Tuesday.
So we'll put it on the agenda.
If you just want to move it forward, I appreciate that.
We have a motion, please, Commissioner Russell.
Yes, I just wanted to say, I got the phone call just a day or so ago from Chet in regards to this. And I just want to share with the board that it's very timely for us. We have new leadership on our board, and this will allow us to dive in a little bit deeper to see where our kids and our community is on this issue. So I'm very excited about this, and I will make that motion to move this forward.
If you were last week, I forwarded an email that I sent to all the coalition members with the 3 categories that we're hoping to focus on. That was the main portion of the grant. And obviously the Michigan Network, Prevention Network must have agreed with that concept because they agreed to fund the study to proceed with that project.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. And that brings us to the Conservation District. Mark Buzz along here. Want to say anything before we start? Or?
Well, I did forget one thing in my update, so if I can continue with that. We did have an issue this year was with our selling of dried cherries. We were ceased and desisted by the state because we don't have a proper facility to repackage cherries. So we went through, it came about right as we were getting into our holiday season and where we sell quite a bit. And not that it's a big program with the district, but we've done it for like 40 years and we wanted to continue. And but because we were repackaging and didn't have a facility that met state standards, they ceased and desisted us through several iterations of variances that we applied for. We finally got authorization and the cease and desist order was rescinded. And what we're doing now is packaging cherries in the community meeting room kitchen. Because our kitchen only had a single basin sink, and we used it for other things, eating and all of that. We couldn't use that, so now we have to use the kitchen in the commission in the community meeting room, and because there's a 2-basin sink in there, we can do that. We still have to. We're using a disposable scoop. We had one scoop that we had to clean that we were using before. And anyway, that all got resolved and we're selling cherries again, so.
So do you plan on continuing that, or are you gonna put in a double sink in your office?
I think we'll just continue doing what we're doing. It's not that we, it's not a big operation for us, so.
So does that mean you have a whole bunch of cherries down there to sell?
Yeah. Yes, we do.
Well, that's not the question. The question is, have you got the chocolate covered cherries in yet? That's the question.
That has been a problem, yeah, because I guess there's a problem getting chocolate. So, but we do have some. We do have both dark and milk chocolate cherries available.
So the commission probably should have samples to taste.
My next update.
All right, so then we have the draft recommendations. Commissioner Lautner.
Yes, I recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the 2022 Conservation District Work Order Number 1, Conservation, Education, and Technical Assistance in the amount not to exceed $43,000 in funds to come from 801.000.
Support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Well, I would recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the 2022 Work Order Number 2, Soil Erosion and Sedimentation Control, funds to come from the collection of county-approved permit erosion fees.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion passes 7-0.
I would recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the 2022 Work Order Number 3, Water Quality Monitoring in an amount not to exceed $5,000, funds to come from 801.000.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion passes 7-0. Is there anything else?
That'll be it for now. We truly appreciate your support and thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll get those samples and bring them up. We'll be here for a while.
Okay.
All right, then that brings us to the Sheriff's Office request for holding a fundraising event.
We're in. So we're looking at the possibility of doing a golf outing fundraiser to help pay for canine operations. When we first started the canine in late 2013, we went to the Grand Traverse Band and they provided us the money for the dog and for the equipment, and the board provided us the money for converting the vehicle so it's dog friendly, stays cool in the summer, doors open automatically, so forth. So it's been a very successful program. As you know, we retired Nico last year. We've since lost Nico, and Greg at the same time retired from the canine handler position and became one of our sergeants. So Ryan Lott is a new canine handler with a new dog, Klaus. He's just sort of getting on his feet, had kind of a rough start at the start with some health issues, but he's doing very well now. And that dog was paid for by a friend of mine and a friend of all yours in the community here who came to me one time and said, I'd like to pay for your next dog. And he wrote us either a $10,000 or $12,000 check, you might remember, Chet, but he basically wrote it to the fund. And to purchase a dog is somewhere $10,000 to $12,000 because it involves training for the handler, training for the dog, so on and so forth. So we're looking down the road, the undersheriff's being very responsible. We're trying to figure out where the next dollar is coming from. We have approximately $8,000 in that account right now. And again, this dog's in its infancy, so to speak. So what we're looking at is what are we gonna do down the road here? So Benzie County Sheriff's Office is doing a golf outing fundraiser and they do quite well. They usually make about 10 grand or more each year. And it's been pretty successful there. So we're toying with the idea. And we're not against the idea of maybe coming to the board and say, what do we do for our next dog? Let it be your decision. And that's something we could talk about at next month's meeting if you want. But right now, we're willing to step forward and put a golf outing on. It would be at Bailey Farms. And it would be probably the first week in June, probably around the 3rd. So if we did that, a bunch of us would be volunteering there, get it going. We'd look for some outside sponsors and some corporate sponsors. So kind of throwing that up to you. One, would you approve this request to put this EDS forward and allow us to start planning, because we have to get liquor licenses and all the permits and all that stuff for raffles, whatever we're doing? And two, do you think this is a good idea, or should we just come to the board and say, hey, 7 years from now, we're probably gonna need another dog. Do you want to fund it over time or all at once? What is your thoughts on it as a board?
Commissioner Law.
Yes, a while back, we had some discussion about donations for your canine unit. Did we, can somebody remind me, please, did we approve fundraising
Yes.
already?
We are,
Okay.
yep.
Okay,
In
so
the-
you are, I'm sorry, Jim.
No, in the fundraising policy, when we do something of this magnitude, we're still required to come back to you for approval.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's exactly where I was going. So
Correct.
thank you, Mr. Kittel. So my question is then, do we think this golf outing is a good way for you to go? Is that kind of what you're looking for? Is our
Right.
Okay.
At least start out this first year, see how it goes. Let's say we raise $10,000. Well, that goes into the canine fund. If a dog is chasing somebody or looking for a lost Alzheimer's patient or a lost kid with autism, and a dog runs through a fence, it's a barbed wire fence, rips its belly open, we've got a huge bill. And, it comes right out of that account fund. And there's the normal maintenance, the food and what happens, and, rabies and parvo and all that. So I guess two-folded in the same way. And we have had quite a few donations to the canine fund. Last year, we were behind the curve with some of the funding for marine safety. So we got a $7,500 gift from a real kind individual. Do what you want with it. So we put that into the marine fund to make that functional. We put a lot more hours on the water last year. Our boats are getting older, more maintenance, more equipment, but we didn't put much into the canine last year, maybe a few hundred. So if we get another opportunity like that, we'll probably shove that into the canine fund again. But
So then back to my original question, since we approved that, all of the I's and T's that need to be dotted and crossed, you work through the administrator's office to make sure your licensing is all done through the county, to make sure that we
And actually,
insured, et cetera.
probably all those, but for 25 years, I chaired the Central Michigan University, the Northwestern Michigan College, and the St. Francis Golf Outings. So I can be glad to help.
oh yeah, that'd be awesome. Good.
There's some fun games. There's some liability issues that I can tell you how to
Okay.
get around it, so I won't be the county's liability.
That would be
That's
great.
what I was going, so that would be
If you wish
super.
to do it.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a fun event. I don't see the downside. I think we've covered MMRA. We got to work out, and there's some things I can work with you on, the liquor and the
Great.
games and the prizes
Great.
that enhance, other than just the golf part.
Great. I think there's a lot of support for canine programs nationally. People look at a canine dog, yeah, they bark when you walk by the car, they seem all scary, but we have them wandering around the schools with us. It's good to detect if there's any narcotics in the schools, and I'm sure you're aware there's plenty of it there. So it's good to have the dog in there for that purpose. It's good if we have an emergency, like there's a person, an active aggressor inside a building with a bomb or a knife or a gun or something, you can send the dog in after them. They're trained to take that person down and hold them until the handler gets there. And they're also really good, and I think we forget this sometimes, how valuable they are when grandpa walks away from a nursing care facility or home, and they're just wandering around. You don't know where they are. And we have the same thing with kids with autism, and we're giving the deputies training about seniors and tardive dyskinesia. And schizophrenia and all these different things. And one of the things with autism, kids run to water right away. They go to pools, they go to ponds, they go to creeks, they go to gravel pits. It's very, very hazardous. So these dogs play not just, if you will, the law enforcement role, but a lot of rescue roles. So I think we'll get a lot of support from the public. And I think when you show the picture of Canine Talk About, you get good support.
Just a couple of questions, Chair. How much currently do you have in your canine fund?
About 8,000.
Just about 8,000. So I think the golf sounds like a fun event. I hope you make it best ball for those of us who may be not on the top of our game. But the other is more a suggestion. If you had a poster, we have many vet clinics in this state who I know would undoubtedly be willing to post that. And with one of those nice stories about rescue.
Sure.
I think you'd find you'd have a lot of unsolicited funds come in from those of us who visit our vet clinics and love to see.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of it's just education with a poster and getting the word out, how we're doing it, why we're doing it. Thank you.
But just for fundraising, I don't mean the publicizing of the event, just fundraising.
Yeah, just to get the word out. This is why we're even doing the event, to try to keep the operation going and keep canines safe.
I think it's a great idea. I think it'll bring the community together, make them more aware of some of those things that do happen out there where the dog does come to the rescue, you might say. So I am going to make the motion. I'll move to recommend that the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners approve and allow the Leelanau County Sheriff's Office to hold a charity gold outing to benefit and maintain the canine program.
Should be golf.
Little typo.
I had a typo.
I was gonna ask.
I'm sorry.
about that.
Charity
Gold
gold.
will be accepted.
Yeah.
My proofreaders.
Charity
Yeah.
gold event.
It's
Thank you.
it's the charity gold golf outing.
Yeah.
Could you correct that for me, Madam?
Honestly, that's what I thought you were going to call it. It's
So charity gold.
Maybe not a bad
golf
idea.
outing.
Yeah.
That's what we'll call it from now on.
Yeah, charity gold.
We're looking for the gold.
We're going for the gold for this. Well, we just don't want to like get slammed up, let's say we had a big surgery or something, or he got hit by a car, or something got injured somehow, or we just got to 7, 8 years down the road. All of a sudden, what do? We want to keep the program live and well, so.
No, that was my only thing. I wanted to know what a charity gold event was.
It's good you're reading it.
The charity gold golf outing.
Yeah.
That's right.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I'll help. I don't golf, so I would help out with things that you need.
You're like me, I'm gonna empty garbage that day or cook bratwurst. I'm gonna do something other than golf, because you don't want to see me golfing.
Sure. You mentioned something about seniors there, so I just wondering if this is gonna benefit the undersheriff more than the department, since you're approaching your senior years when he has to find you.
Ooh, that's a good one. That is a good one.
But as long as you're here in front of us, it's been a few months. Do you have any updates on where you're at with golf?
Well, interesting, you said that. I met with Representative O'Malley earlier this week and Tristan Cole, and they talked about, where we're headed, what our needs are. And I said, I'm really trying to get a safe boat, a Great Lakes class patrol boat for Leland, and explain why. And he wants me to give him an update of, where we're at in the process. I know the board committed to 1/3 of the cost of a boat. If we can even talk about it now and have it for an EDS next month, we're going to have that federal grant opportunity again through Homeland Security where they pay 75% of the boat. I would like to push that forward again. That may change the numbers and lower it for the county from 1/3 to 1/4. But I still want to push forward with that. As of right now, there's a couple sources out there I'm looking at. I waited till after the first of the year because of when they donate, when they can write it off and so forth. So I'm going to approach a couple sources and see if they want to go in, maybe a third, and then the county a third. But now that Representative O'Malley said, well, you guys are great for us, and what can we do to help you? And when we talked about it, I showed him a picture of the boat. He, as of yesterday, wants me to give him a whole packet on the boat. He said, well, maybe we can do something from legislature, which would, of course, help the county in that you'd have less. So maybe the legislature would pay a third. You pay a third, maybe we get a federal grant for a third, or a private entity. So We have a marine safety account. So if someone said, here, I'll give you the check for the boat, we have it established. Same as the canine fund, but as of now, we're still kind of neutral on that. That federal grant is due in May. We're putting that up. I think it's got to be in like by May 25th or something like that. So we'll be working on that March and April. Our Marine commander's in Florida for the winter. He and I are staying active on the phone, picking up stuff, getting stuff ready for this year. And I think we'll start that grant process probably by the end of February. It's real simple for us because Homeland Security has told me, you guys write the best grants. It's just you don't have as much Homeland Security need up here as they do at the Detroit River or Chicago area. And my answer back to that is you already bought them 6 boats, you already bought them 3 and them 4. And I come back. So last year, the DNR got the grant, the only grant for Michigan, Northern Michigan, including all the UP, went to the DNR. And the DNR, having worked there, got a lot of these grants from the feds, and they put a boat in Charlevoix. So that said, maybe we're next on the hit list. I'm going to push for it. And that's kind of the update till I hear back from them. The need will never go away for that boat. I'm going to try as long as I'm walking. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That brings us then to the Solid Waste Council recycling.
Morning.
Good morning.
I have one request for you today. It is the agreement with the Road Commission for the recycling site over in Suttons Bay Village. This agreement is different than the agreements that we have for the other sites. This is a $1 a year agreement, so we would not be paying any lease like we have been paying for the other ones. And we will pay for any site improvements. The Road Commission made that very clear from the beginning. The motion that is on page 23 of your packet includes language that if you approve the entering into this agreement, that it would still be pending final review by both attorneys, because we're waiting to hear from the Road Commission's attorney if we're at that final point yet. So we could still be tweaking this a little bit. And there's one correction, which I already have our attorney on it. They fixed it. It's on page 28 in your packet, number 17. The Road Commission's address has been changed to Sutton's Bay. There's a mistake in there. So I think we're close. If you're in agreement on this, I know this has taken some time, but I figured that when we started that, we've got to get through all the paperwork and then we have to set the site up and get the driveway in.
Trudy, what type of site accommodations do you anticipate need to be done?
Before we started all this, I met with Brendan Mullane, the manager over there, and we walked and looked at the site. So we're definitely going to need a drive coming in off of Eckerly Road and most likely gravel. They're not talking about paving that site. And of course, gravel is quieter too for putting the containers back down. Maybe a fence, not sure on that yet.
Okay, so it's nominal.
Yeah, it's not going to be a lot. And actually Brendan said they can probably do the work for us, but they will have to invoice us. They'll do it at their cost.
Curbs and gutters for that driveway?
I don't think so. He didn't talk about that.
I was gonna go ahead and make the motion to approve the interlocal land lease, ground lease agreement between Leelanau County and the Leelanau County Road Commission for a recycling site pending final review by corporate counsel.
Second. I was going to do just the same.
Any other questions or statements? Mr. Elder.
So will that have a camera right away?
Yes. They have cameras there. They're not focused right on that site, but we will take care of that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no.
Okay, thank you.
7-0. Did you have a question?
Yeah, question. I know it's new and I just saw it in the Enterprise last week. How's it looking with out here, our 30 new dumpsters?
I think it's doing very well. Yeah, we have the 4 containers out there, just getting some people starting to use it now and doesn't seem to have any problems. We're gonna keep a good eye on it too.
And it was able to be empty yesterday, no issues. There's plenty of
Yes.
space there for the truck to back up. We didn't lose any parking spots that were being used. And the truck, I was watching them yesterday. They backed up, there was plenty of room. Even if there was a vehicle going down to the lower level, they still could have got by the truck.
And all the containers were repainted for Green for Life. That's the company that bought out American Waste. So they are no longer red. They're that bright green color.
You want to talk about the signs that will be up shortly?
Signs are ordered. They're here. Miss Dig has been here and posted the locations where they're going to be put up, and Maintenance Department has contacted Road Commission to see if they could put those up for us. So that as soon as they have a break and they can get over here, they'll be putting those up.
Any other? Commissioner Long?
I read all that about Miss Dig. Is it really necessary to add more posts? Or couldn't they be added to posts we already have? Because I mean, we're starting to get a lot of signage now on that drive coming up here.
Well, they're already ordered and they're attached to the post already. So we would have one at the road and one at the top of the hill. You might have seen it when you came up. There's a like a yardstick in the ground, and it's got some red flags right there.
Okay.
Any other questions or statements?
Just thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That would bring us to senior services, the proposed agreement with MMAP Incorporated. Sorry.
Hi. So I'm coming before to seek approval to enter into a contract with MAP. This is through the state. We have a contract currently through Area Agency on Aging. As you know, for the MAP program that we provide services for, the state approached Area Agency inquiring if we'd be interested in having a contract with them as well, as that they can provide additional assistance, or if we're able to help those that are lower income to reduce that Medicare amount that's taken out of their Social Security, that they could also provide additional dollars for more education and getting word out and about the services that are available for MAP. So this would be them contributing money to us for providing the program. This would not be us paying out them. So.
Commissioner Solicitor.
I move to recommend to the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners approve Leelanau County Senior Services to enter into an agreement with MMAP Inc. to provide MPPA beneficiary outreach assistance services for seniors. The contract agreement will begin September 1st, 2021 and continue through August 31st, 2022.
I'll second.
Did you say that we're not going to pay the $200 for each?
No, they would pay us. So if we identify working with a senior and they're lower income, and we're able to apply, if our MAP counselor, Bruce Barnes, is able to help the senior apply for assistance through the state so that their Medicare is not taken out of their Social Security, there is a grant. This is a grant program that would pay, they're paying dollars to us for assisting that senior to helping them financially. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that is, when I read this, that isn't the way I understood it. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
If you would clarify for the board, you've been working with this for several years, is that
Yes,
correct?
that
It's
is correct.
basically the same program for the advantage of the seniors to discover what other Medicare benefits are available.
Correct.
Commissioner Long.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question, maybe more for the clerk. I know the clerk now numbers our motions so that they're for reference in the future. And if someone were to pull up motion 2022-06 or whatever, would just the motion be there, or would all the dialogue be there?
If I'm doing an excerpt, then it's just the motion because the dialogue isn't there. You could go back and reference those minutes if there was dialogue there, or go to the tape.
The reason I asked that, as I've mentioned before, you know, we tend to pick up on all these acronyms, we see them, but if general public were to pull up that, they would say, what is MMAP? So I was just wondering for future, as we do these, we can put.
Yeah, we can put in brackets what it is, like we tried to
Yeah.
Medicare improvements for patients and providers act.
Yeah, a couple of motions back, it did that. And I, you know, okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions or statements? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
That would bring us for information technology. We have a renewal of the Barracuda.
I have two items today. First is the renewal for our Barracuda Essentials, which is our email filtering and archiving software. It's an annual contract or agreement with Barracuda. It's all handled in the cloud. Very important for keeping our network safe. Try to filter out as many bad emails as we can, which is how we got hit last time. So request that we approve this.
Commissioner Rushton.
I would move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the renewal of the annual maintenance contract for the Barracuda Essentials software in the amount of $6,750 from Riemann, with funds to come from the data processing fund number 636.
Support. Commissioner Lund.
How many years have we been with Barracuda now? 3, 4?
Oh, way more than that. Since I've been here.
Oh, really? Okay.
So yeah, since we've had email, basically, we've had Barracuda, we've had a different type of service.
Gotcha. Okay.
It was
that makes sense.
an appliance that was there physically in our rack.
Okay. that
Then we
makes
moved to the Essentials, which had the archiving, and it was just a newer version of the Barracuda.
Okay, so is Raymond the only?
No, Raymond is not the only, but we did do
You guys?
we did one about 2 years ago,
Okay,
and
so
Raymond was the cheapest at that time, so it's probably, their price has been the same. This year, I think it's like maybe $250 more than it was last year, but it's mainly because we've had now more users. So, the rate has been consistent, so.
Okay, so we're still new enough in it to not have to go out for bids again.
Yeah.
By board motion, by board rules, so we have to waive our board rules, or because it's a renewal, does it fit?
I'm not sure of that. I've always wondered when it is required or when it's
You can
not.
argue both ways. Right.
Okay.
Any other questions or statements? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, the next is for our duo security, which is used for law enforcement in our townships when they access our system from remotely. It's a dual authentication process where once they sign in, they're sent it's not really a text, it's an app on their phone, where it asks them, is this you that's really trying to log in? So then they have to respond to that and say, yes, this is really me trying to log in. If someone were to get their password and login credentials, they would still be presented with that, not really a text, but a request on their app. Then they could say, oh, this wasn't me. So it's required by lien for our law enforcement. And it's really just good practice for anybody accessing our network outside.
Okay, thank you, Ron. I know we have this for our law enforcement, and I'm guessing CJI is criminal justice information.
Requirements, yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So that makes sense, but why in law enforcement information, et cetera? Why do townships treasurers and assessors need this for their tax?
Well, what they do is they log into our system here and under what's called our terminal server, where they actually run the BSNA software locally here. So when they post a payment to the system here, the next day it's on our website. Okay, some of the townships don't do this.
Not necessarily they're not doing the lien side.
No,
Okay.
it's just,
Okay, it's just bringing it through that channel.
Yeah.
Okay, that's.
yeah,
Thank you so
so
much.
that it's instantaneous, well, not instantaneous. The next day, the website shows that they made their tax payment.
Okay,
Some townships don't do that. They actually run locally and then periodically upload the data to us. So those records are more out of date, if you will, on our website.
much more. convenient.
Yeah.
I would recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the renewal of the annual maintenance contract with dual authentication software and funds to come from data processing fund 636. Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. So then we move on to the proposed resolution supporting the Community Mental Health Authority. Commissioner Wesson.
Yes, before I speak to that, if you read the record equal today, you would note that Committee Mental Health Board did approve a contract with a new CEO yesterday. Joni Blainer was interim CEO. She had applied for the position. The position was awarded to David Cloutier, who was the Director of Community Mental Health for Macomb County Community Mental Health Authority. And we had two good candidates, and we hope to keep Joni there and hope they look up. We spent, and Chairman Bunnick and I have participated in a couple of meetings where Joni Blamer has talked about proposed legislation in the House and the Senate that drastically reduces services to those most vulnerable populations. It removes some of the services provided by public entities and makes them, gives that to private providers. It eliminates some of the oversight, much of the oversight of the Community Mental Health Board. And it really does reduce the safety net. And we are proposing today that this board approve the resolution on page 45 of your board packet. We do not need either the House or the Senate proposed legislation. It would take services away. It would eliminate local oversight. It would give people in Lansing control of the community mental health system. So I recommend that this board approve the resolution on page 45 and 46.
Support.
Any questions? Commissioner Wilson?
A question hopefully you can answer. The Community Mental Health Authority, do they serve strictly patients or customers that are funded through the state aid or state insurance? Do they service private citizens who have private insurance?
Well, they would provide some services, but most of the services are Medicare services and services to the caregivers of Medicare services. Most of the population is mental illness, addiction, homelessness, autism, adults and children with disabilities. And they would not, they do not provide services through private insurance, but it's through Medicare and other funds. This board, this county provides some services for mental health that are above and beyond Medicare.
And Medicaid.
Medicaid, yes. Did I answer your question?
You did, and I'm just wondering how many agencies in the private sector are available to our citizens who do have private care? Do you know the answer to that?
I do not know, but I know the bulk of the services provided by community mental health are people in jails, people in tents, people in foster homes and supported homes and caregivers of those populations.
Those populations that you speak to, if they have private care, private insurance, are they also included under this agency, or are they rejected because of the type of health care they have?
I can't answer that question, but I will answer it for you by next week.
Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering.
There is not duplication.
If we're not providing services to all of our mental health community. And I was just wondering, why is it that they wouldn't take private care insurance and provide that assistance when there's so much mental health need out there in the community? I don't know. I was just, I was quite surprised to find out that they limit the assistance that they have, so.
Mr. Law.
Yeah, actually, these are some of the questions I had, because that's how I had understood what they were trying to do was to increase and try to get more of those covered. So I'm really kind of, I'm torn on this. I wonder, perhaps we could even just move it forward, because I don't want to not support it. But is this something our governor is expected to sign?
It is expected that one of the two proposals will go forward. And one's in the House and one's in the Senate. There is not, to my knowledge, any community mental health board or authority in the state that supports this. Nor does the Community Mental Health Association. There is great concern that this takes away the services to those that do not have insurance and provides care only for those that have private payer insurance. I think this would be, from all of the conversations that I've had with people, and we've had several sessions, catastrophic.
But as I understand it, microphones. Also, I have more questions before Tuesday, so thank you for that, Madam Clerk. So I would just prefer to postpone the vote on this until Tuesday. I have some more questions, and you brought up even more questions by your comments. So this is a resolution. It's pretty big. Yes, thank you.
I would offer, if anybody would send me questions in the next couple of days, I will meet with somebody from Community Mental Health to at least get their response to those questions.
I would just, I feel a need to comment to the importance of a community mental health in a community. We have so many people who are underserved. And if they try to go to a private clinic, first of all, we have a dearth. We don't have enough clinicians here already. And we don't have enough private clinics already. We just don't have enough. There's a, 9-month waiting list? As far as the importance of, I was in a, not a community mental health, but in a clinic in 2000 that took community mental health people. And I believe it was prior to 2000, we would see people like with schizophrenia, or I didn't, but there were clinicians there who saw people with mental illness, bipolar, schizophrenic, that kind of thing. And people came in once a week. Actually, I did see a couple. And what that did was stabilize them. There was one particular woman that I saw. She was married. She had a family. Her mother was schizophrenic, and she was in the hospital for life. So this was a genetic, familial, inherited issue. She'd come in and she'd have.
We need to speak to the issue.
I am. She would come in. She would come in with a lot of really wacky ideas, and we'd talk it out. And she'd go home, a little more settled down. That was changed. Now people can't get services until they had a breakdown and they were in the hospital. Very destabilizing. If this move is yet another step in taking away services to severely mentally ill people and underserved people and people without insurance. So I think we have to look at this as another step in the private sector to get more taxpayer dollars, and those taxpayer dollars are desperately needed to serve those underserved populations. Keep them off the streets, maybe get them out of a tent. They are doing God's work. So I sure am going to want to support these services.
I don't want anybody on this board to misconstrue my intent with my questions. What I see is there is an increased need for mental health services across the country. That's why I'm asking the questions. So one more question, if you may know the answer to. If you have a private paid person who exhausts their private care insurance, are they then allowed to access services through community mental health?
If they exhaust their private care possibilities, then they would probably qualify for some of the services available through community mental health because of income situation.
Okay.
Yes, my understanding when we spoke with Joni, and we did that a couple of different times, was that this would actually impair some of the people who are being helped by community health getting the services. And that's why these bills are in committee at this time. And they're saying that they need to be changed to help people more and not take them off of community mental health. That's my understanding of what she was saying. And the only thing I say with this resolution is that we should send this to our representatives if we're going to approve this. I think that should be included in this resolution. And I would make amendment to have this sent, if passes this board, to be forwarded to our state representatives.
I support that.
Yes.
Do we have a motion on the floor? I thought okay, and is that's the amendment has been made and supported?
Yes.
Good.
So the resolution, the motion was made and supported. I would like to amend it so that it adds an ending where it gets forwarded to our state representatives.
And I think someone just supported that.
Yes.
Good.
So are there any other questions or statements about this? Commissioner Long.
Is the motion to approve or to move forward to Tuesday?
At this time, it's to approve.
Okay. May I make an amendment to the motion to change approve to move forward to Tuesday night?
I will do that. I will change my motion without an amendment to, if we can move this forward, I'll get questions.
Okay.
Is that okay with the second?
Certainly. Oh.
I really think that will help all of us with this. I don't think there is one of us that does not support this, but so I'm really glad we'll get some answers.
So we'll vote first on adding the paragraph at the end to send it to our representatives. And then we'll vote. If that's approved or disapproved, then we'll vote on the amendment as it is, either amended or not. So this is on the amendment itself. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion passes 7-0. And so now we'll vote on the amended motion. As he voted to move this, just move this forward. Does everyone understand that? Because it did get changed. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion passes 7-0. Yes.
On your amendment to add it, I guess the administrator will amend it, but
Yeah.
normally that's governor, state reps.
Yeah, we'll put a standard language
Plus
in
all the
there.
83 counties is where these normally go.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll put the standard language we usually use on
Thank you.
resolutions.
Yes. Commissioner Woods.
I would just once again ask if anybody would send that to me. Any questions by Thursday, I will meet with somebody on Friday and chat for distribution.
Thank you for that. All right, then we move on to the prayer policy review. Commissioner Elgar.
Yes. I brought this up. And what I would like to do is our prayer policy. I recognize that we discussed this at length last week. And in the spirit of compromise, I accept that this board voted to extend, and I believe actually we mentioned supporting a one-year trial through August. I accept that we agreed to do that. I am still troubled by the exclusionary nature of what we have done. And I believe that we would achieve our ends in a better way if we don't exclude, if we don't present as excluding so many of our citizens from having their spiritual leaders come to Leelanau County. I'm not sure they're going to want to, but the very fact that we're not excluding them, that we are inviting and acknowledging. So in the spirit of honoring all of our citizens, and in the spirit of the love of the very spirit we are honoring here, I would like to recommend that we amend our prayer policy to remove any requirement for affiliation or location within Leelanau County and open eligibility to any leader of a congregation, which includes Leelanau residents. Support. And that would continue through August as we read.
So before we, so you've supported this, that is your motion?
Yes.
Okay. So I'd like to say to start with that this is now a reconsideration of the policy that we just adopted. And in a reconsideration after 30 days, it takes a 2/3 majority in order for a motion to pass on a reconsideration. Does everyone understand that?
I'm not sure I do.
Let me
Because
try to
we
clarify.
decided
Yeah.
last
Yeah,
week.
let me try to clarify that, because last week was just an organization meeting. You simply added prayer to the agenda on the board and rules. You talked about August, but there was no motion made because that was an organizational meeting. So if you see in the rules, prayer was added. That was, but there was no motion to do it to August because you have to do that at a regular meeting. The reconsideration is by 2/3, you would have to have a motion to reconsider first before you can modify any previous action by the board. It's more than 30 days. The question was about the term of office. You can't, the term of office is a 2-year period. So your term of office was from January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2022. So during that period, because we've had this issue a couple years ago, and I think illegal, you have to pass by 2/3 majority a motion to reconsider first. So that doesn't impact the policy. It's just a motion to reconsider a past action taken by the board.
So the 30 days is 30 days from when?
From when it was passed. If it's within the 30 days by your board rules, you can bring it back up. If it's beyond that, it needs a motion to reconsider.
But we reinstituted this last week.
No, that was your organizational meeting. That was separate. You added prayer to your board policy, just in terms of the agenda. You said the word prayer on the agenda. This policy was passed May 18, 2021. That's when the policy was.
So we
Last
need-
week was an organizational meeting.
So that means I need to make a motion to reconsider.
Yes, it'll take 2/3. Is that correct? I'm just, we went through this. That's in Robert rules. That's not in your board rules. Yeah, that's a question. Robert rules are guidelines.
Yep.
Your board rules supersede Robert's rules.
In the reconsideration, it is supposed to be presented to the clerk in writing at least 24 hours before we do a reconsideration. Commissioner West.
Thanks. Well, I'll preface my comments by saying I really appreciate Dr. Cardin's statements today. I think she spoke very well about the concerns that I have. I would support the change in the policy to make it more inclusive. It's better than what we currently have, if we get a chance to vote on that. I just would like to remind this group that we amend policy all the time without that formal reconsideration notion. We may choose to do that this time, but I could go back and look at our minutes for the last year, and we've modified a lot of policy on a regular basis without notifying the clerk 24 hours ahead of time and filing for a reconsideration. I don't want to fight that battle. I support Dr. Cardin's statements. I'd rather have it inclusive. I sure would like to do it, but I think it's becoming tiresome to every meeting having a discussion about the prayer. And I was hoping that when we amended the board rules, we'd get rid of it. We didn't. So at least this is progress, and I support that.
Just a technical clarification. We have not amended policies within that 2-year period. If it's beyond that 2-year period, it's just a simple majority. But the policies we have amended, I think, have been beyond that term of office, because we don't modify policies on a regular basis. You just modified the investment policy that was done 3-4 years ago. So if it's done within your term of office, then you do have to reconsider it. It's done by the next term. So that finance committee or that finance policy, for example, I believe was modified in 2018. So that would take a simple majority. Anything done within this term of office has to go through the reconsideration of a policy.
Right, and well,
I just want to clarify that. I don't want to get involved in the politics of it, but I don't think we have modified policy without going through this process in the term of the current commissioners.
and I would say almost always when we modify policies, it's a 7-0 vote. It isn't, usually it's not.
I would remind you that we did change our COVID policy last term. So I respect our administrator, but I will tell you there are exceptions to this. And I will tell you also, Mr. Chairman, that yes, they're usually 7-0, but I'm telling you, we don't usually notify the clerk in 24 hours advance notice in filing for reconsideration. So I just think we ought to follow the same rules all the time. That's just my point.
Well, I do think that I was just telling that that's the rule. I do think she was notified because it was put on the agenda. And so she had the idea that it was going to be in here. So I was just stating what the policy says. I wasn't trying to stop it or anything. Just follow it so people, we know what the policy is.
So can we assume that that is the policy?
Commissioner
in the
Soliswittle
future?
has the.
I'm sorry, I was
floor.
just trying to clarify what you said.
Yes.
I was going to ask that question. That Commissioner Algar is just asking. If the assumption is that it was on the board with the idea of, excuse me, if the assumption is that it was on the agenda with the idea of modifying, then does it not follow that Commissioner Algar can ask for reconsideration at this time?
I was thinking yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was.
I thought that was because it was on there. And the only question I had, and I didn't bring it up, was that to keep it on the agenda at the beginning, maybe needed to be a 5-2 vote. But it was 4-3, and so I let it go forward because I didn't want to have that argument at that time. I thought, well, we're going to do it. There's a majority that wants to have it on. And we're really talking about the agenda. So, but at this time, I thought I should bring it up so we're following it.
So, Mr. Chairman, then
Yes.
she can temporarily withdraw her motion and make the motion for reconsideration formally. Does she need to do that first? And then she can follow that with the motion she just made. So if she were to withdraw her motion and instead make a motion for reconsideration on the prayer issue, then if that passes, then she can then make her motion once again.
Right. Do you understand what she's saying?
I believe so. You'll correct me if I don't get it right.
Well, basically, if you want to, what you're saying is if you want to withdraw the motion, and then we can do a motion to reconsider. And then if that passes 5-2 or 7-0 or whatever, it has to be at least 5-2 is what I'm saying. Then you could do the motion to change the policy.
So I make a motion to withdraw my original motion.
No.
No,
That if
okay.
you withdraw it, it's just withdrawn. And,
Okay.
and let me clarify that. As I was reading through the rules, if the motion maker withdraws it, it doesn't have to be the second okays it as well. If the person I have been doing it where the second has to okay it before we withdraw it. It actually is as if the motion maker withdraws the motion, it's withdrawn.
Yeah, so I don't have to say motion, I could just withdraw it.
Yes.
And now I make a motion to reconsider in the spirit of inclusiveness for all of our residents.
So this would be, have to be a 5-2 vote at minimum. So I would just ask for,
Who seconded that motion?
I'll second it.
oh, I'm sorry, yeah, you're right.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
It's a procedural question, and I understand this. I also think I understand that our policy does not require that we have a prayer. Our policy says if we have a prayer, this is the policy we follow. So this body on a 4-3 vote, I'm not suggesting that, but on a 4-3 vote, we could eliminate it from our agenda because board rules can be changed at any time. But if we're going to have a prayer, then it will take a supermajority to amend the policy. I believe that's correct, but I want to make sure I understand that correctly.
Well, board rules can be modified at any time, so I guess that's a technical question. According to your board rules, any questions about procedures are determined by the chairman. That can be challenged by any member, and then has to be a vote of the commissioners to see where they agree with the chairman's viewpoint or if they are opposed to it. So really, it's an internal decision between the 7 of you.
And I apologize for this. I'm looking ahead though too, because we said that we were going to give it a little bit more time. If that's what we do, I believe we can change the agenda of our meetings by a simple majority of our commission. And I think it's important to know that before we vote on this, that this is what we're doing about our policy. But at any time that this body so wanted to do it, we could change our agenda format and not have a prayer if there were 4 commissioners that voted in the affirmative. And I just think that would be helpful to understand before we move forward. Yes.
Yeah. I don't believe that's true. I think that we're back in May or wherever it was, we decided where to put that in the agenda. I think because it wasn't put into the policy, we've now okayed it into the policy as it was presented this time. But I do believe we've had it on our agenda and that was approved by this board back in, I think, August or whatever it was, I'm not sure. So I would have a difference of opinion about that, but we would have to check and see. Okay. All right. So anyway, this is for reconsideration. And we have a roll call.
Commissioner Albert,
Yes.
Chairman Bonnet,
No.
Commissioner Lautner,
No.
Commissioner Robbins,
Yes.
Commissioner Rushton,
No.
Commissioner Sotis Little,
Yes.
Commissioner Wessel,
Yes.
4-3.
So the motion fails. So then,
Well,
yes.
yeah, just before we go on, I'm disappointed that we didn't reconsider. I had not supported this, but as Commissioner Algar said it was the will of the board to move forward with the prayer. I think that the comments by the Reverend Dr. Carden were right on target. You know, this is something that when you have reverends and pastors saying, I don't support this, at the very least, we should do the inclusive. I offered the inclusion when we first put this policy, this prayer policy together, and it was rejected at that time. So to bring it up, to not allow expansion of it, to include pastors, reverends, whatever their clerical position is in terms of being able to come and give a prayer if they have constituents in this county. It's just very disappointing, and I think that's, as Dr. Carden said, adds to the divisiveness that we've had. So I know even some of our other commissioners have stated it's created divisiveness, and I think we really should at least do that much to be inclusive, and I'm just disappointed.
And I'm very disappointed that we seem so intent on excluding so many of our residents. I will never forget the resident who happens to be Jewish, who said for the first time, I do not feel welcome in my country. Because we put up an artificial barrier and said, we don't want your. That's not a good message. We're supposed to represent all of our citizens, not our personal religious beliefs. I think we failed here. Represent our people.
Commissioner West. I too think we failed, and I will leave this meeting today questioning the motivation of those that aren't willing to be more inclusive. It makes no sense to me. It's not American. It's not democratic. It's not inclusive. And we had nothing to lose by passing the amendment and everything to gain. Everything to gain. Thank you. Commissioner Lott.
I just have to say, I think that's very unfair. And it's also putting into your own words what you think others are thinking. And I think that is very unfair. And Mr. Wessel, you have a habit of doing that. And I take exception to that. We just said last week that we were going to give this prayer policy a year. Just said that. And yet I believe for whatever reasons you have, I will let you choose what they are. You choose to keep bringing this up over and over and over again. We all have many, many, many different beliefs, many, many, many different friends of many different faiths. And many of us are hearing different things than what we hear here and what apparently we are thinking. So today, my vote was to stand on what we said last year and give a policy a year. That was at the very least by consensus last week. So I would appreciate we stop trying to put into words what we think each other are thinking. Thank you.
Mr. Robbins.
I guess what I was hoping today is that we'll get reconsidered. I explained to you last week, Chairman Bonnie, you know, look where I live on the border of Grand Traverse County. A lot of my people probably go to church in Traverse City because it's closer. And you know, they may go to the Catholic, they go to St. Francis. You know what you're saying? You're sending messages that priests from St. Francis can't come out here to Leelanau County and pray. And I don't like your idea that the sheriff or the fire chief has to give a blessing. They got enough on their plate. They don't need to be giving people blessing to give prayer. I mean, it just, it just doesn't make sense. It's like, there should be no borders on this county. I mean, we're a whole state here, so I mean, Grand Traverse is next to us. I mean, we practice religion in every county. And you're putting us in a box. That's how I look at it. If you don't go to church in our county, you can't have your person pray. I mean, no offense to you, but I mean, you're a devoted Catholic, but if the priest called, or not the priest, but the Pope called tomorrow, said he wanted to pray tomorrow, I know you'd make exceptions for him to be here. And it's not, we shouldn't have to do that. It should be open. I was hoping that we would reconsider. It's one thing, it's one simple thing that could put a fire out on this issue, and we could move forward and do county business. It's gonna go on for another week or two or whatever. We're gonna hear public comments, but we could have put a fire out today, and we didn't. I'm disappointed.
And I just have to say that our county residents haven't spoken out about this and talked about how they feel excluded. Hello? We've heard them here. We've gotten emails. We've seen it in Facebook community groups. It has been said and repeated and repeated.
Mr. Chairman, I have to say, once again, someone is taking out of context what I said, what any of us have said. We have heard from others, not just here. We have heard from others. As I said, we all have friends. I do, of many denominations that are not represented in this county. They worship in other counties. My comment was, we have heard from others, not just those here. So please stop trying to put words in other people's mouths. It's not doing any justice.
And I would just like to say the policy was, mostly written by our lawyers, basically the corporate counsel. And that they actually put those words in. It's not my policy. And on top of that, would you say that we are excluding people from voting in this county? Because there are many residents who can't vote in this county, they're not allowed to. And when that was put in there, I felt it was exactly the same thing. They aren't allowed to vote in the county, even though they have homes here and stay here, a lot of times. So I would just say that it's not exclusionary any more than our voting rights are exclusionary. I mean, you have to have rules, and we just have to follow them.
So what you're saying is, they can't vote in our county. They can be very, very wealthy summer residents that pay a good share of our taxes, and they don't have a say in prayer, but yet they gotta pay taxes to support the county.
And they can't vote here either. Exactly. So is there any other comments? All right, and then we'll move on then to the administration and the board goals.
Yeah, last week I thought you had a pretty productive dialogue about goals, and I think verbally you kind of all came to consensus. So I tried to attempt to put those in writing. So you have a memo from me with 2 goals, which I think you all verbally agreed to. And goal number 1 was like the personnel, and that is 3-phase successfully conduct a search for new administrator, potentially, or explore potential reorganization of the Leelanau Dam and for the Public Works, and explore the possibility of creating a facility management director position. Goal number 2 was consider options for the use of the jail facility and explore options with office space for the health department.
Any comments or questions about it?
I think that's kind of what you discussed. These are goals.
Yeah.
Just something to look at. It doesn't say you will do them, but you will explore, or at least explore the possibility, or consider these options. So last week I said I'd bring them back this week for your consideration. Let's formally adopt them, we'll pass them out. Just talk about them.
I would move that we accept these as the goals for the 2022 term of Board of Commissioners. We'll go through item number 1, those objectives under personnel, and item number 2, the objectives under goal number 2. Support.
And I believe that we also, these are all things that we need to accomplish this year, and it's a lot. While we continue the work that we started last year.
Yeah, for example, if you look at MERS, when you look at ARPA funds, we're talking about, you already are in the process, housing you've been doing the last 6-7 years. So those to me are not really goals. Those are ongoing projects that you already are in the process of doing, so they're not listed. If we listed all those things, we probably have 20, 25 things we could say that we're working on.
Right. So in that light, yes, these are some very vital things that we.
A similar way to look at this, these are not issues you have tackled in previous years. If you look at them, these are fairly new issues, all for 2022. If you have items that you've dealt with in the past, in my mind, those are not really goals, those are ongoing projects.
Any other comments, Commissioner Wesson?
Well, and I support him, and I also support there's lots of other things we have to worry about. I was serious before about grant writing, and we don't have any reference in our goal about how we structure the administrator and or the HR person. But at some point, we need to come to grips with the fact that we have lots of money out there and lots of opportunity. I guess I was out of line in suggesting I didn't know that commissioners couldn't ask questions when the administrator did his report. But I would like to add to this list of focus on finding opportunities to apply for and get grants to help us do projects that are necessary. And I think that would be a good goal to work on.
Let me suggest this, just it's a controversial. I am in the process of talking to the 4 units of government that expressed interest. I'll have more update. If any commissioner would, I mean, the board did pass a resolution with the HR full-time, and he also passed the job description. And so I believe it's my job to kind of go forward with that. If any commissioner wants to review that, or the job description, or with the HR, you should probably put that on the agenda. I will not fill the position prior to the February meeting. So I think if you want to look at it in February or form a committee to look at that, the HR, I think that's up to each of you to determine if you want to do that. On the administrator, I told Mr. Bonek I'll have my letter by the end of this month. Probably in March, you need to have a full discussion on how you wish to proceed at that point and move forward.
Well, during the break, Commissioner Wessel and I spoke about this, and I saw his concern about maybe we're not going to talk about the HR that or grants sooner. So I thought my suggestion would be maybe we add it to one of the special meetings. If that's your concern, that we could have that discussion at that time.
You want to add it to the January 31st meeting?
If you wanted to do that, he said we could do it February, but
I think it'd be a healthy discussion, and with the willingness on this part, a real willingness to consider that, I think it would be helpful.
I think by January 31st, I'll know what the feedback is from the units of government that are interested in partnering or not. I'll make it a goal to have that, at least some more updates by the 31st of January.
that would be my suggestion. And that way we can get at it as soon as we can.
And then we'd have to make a decision if we want to repost the job, because obviously grant writing is not a part of the current posting. And I think if you wish to do that, you're going to get different you may get a different pool of candidates. So first, the candidates, they should know what the expectations are. So
Correct.
if you wish to do that, we could add that to the January 31st meeting at 1 p.m.
Thank you.
So any other things about the goals? I don't know, we haven't voted on that yet. I don't believe. Yeah. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The motion passes 7-0. Thank you. So then we move on to the rules of order and procedure.
Yeah, and what Laurel and I try to do is capture what you discussed last week, and there's some of them you voted on, some you did not. So I thought it may be helpful just to go over it one more time to make sure we're on the same page. So the first page I would say you turn to is, I'll go by the numbers in the board package, not on the board rules, page 55. And that's the December meeting was changed. And I believe you voted on this already. So it's the first and second in December. And then.
First and second Tuesdays.
Yes, first and second Tuesdays. Thank you for the clarification. And then on page 58, item number 8 is brand new, and I try to capture what you talked about. That's the goal, to have the executive committee meetings done at 2 p.m. It's not mandated, and it says if it's not done by 2, there will be a vote taken with to continue or not. I believe that captured it. You all agree on?
Well, and I just thought if we vote to continue, I would say we can set another time limit. You know, we continue for another half hour or an hour.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not limited by this.
No, I think at 2 o'clock, anyone can make a motion, and you could say to cancel it. You could say we're going to be done by 3 p.m. It's wherever the motion is that you consider. Does everyone feel comfortable with that language?
Yes.
Okay. And then I believe you did vote on page 60. We changed the public comment to 3 minutes. You added commissioners' comments, and you added consent agenda. And then under public comment at the end, there's 3 minutes also. And
Do we
it's-
want to go through all the changes and then come back to those that we might want to have further discussion on?
Well, I think we've voted already for all of these changes.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
already.
this you did.
This is just to look at it and don't vote on it again.
A question, is this the time to make additions to it? Since we can change it at any time, is this the time that we have to make an addition to what we've already voted on?
Yeah, yes, I guess, yes, because it's within, you know, whatever.
Right,
But
so my
yes.
question is, do we want to go all the way through or to do that as we're moving through? I have a change that I'd like to make.
Okay, yes.
So
I mean, you want to go all through it first before then look at changes?
No, I'd like to, I think we should make the changes as we go.
So that's, go ahead.
But I was going to make the change that public comment, I saw today, I mean, Mr. Ashley didn't have he had 3.5 minutes and didn't get through it, and Dr. Carden was just ripping along to try to get her comment in 3 minutes. It seemed very reasonable to me when we first talked about it. But I really think we go back to our 5 minutes for both the beginning and the concluding comments. And in the concluding comments, I'd like to see us allow call-in. Because then it was disruptive to have people calling in when we did it at the beginning, but at the end, we're through with the meeting. And I don't think it offers disruption, but it does allow people who are here the ability to phone in with their comments. So do we want to discuss that, or do you want me to put that in a motion?
Well, I think we should have it in a motion first,
Okay.
then we know what we're discussing.
Then I would move that we return our public comment to 5 minutes per person for both the beginning and the ending public comment sessions. And then in the second public comment, we allow people to call in and make public comment via telephone.
Commissioner West.
I would like to amend that motion on the first public comment to be restricted to the agenda items for that day. So that would be in addition to, I think, Patricia's motion.
Well, yes, that would be an amendment.
So it would be 5 minutes with public comment restricted to agenda items.
Support. Yes, Steve.
Commissioner Elder.
Yeah, but, okay, a second, we don't
You're the
speak to the
second,
motion
yeah.
first, okay.
Did you want to speak to this?
No. Commissioner Rushton, just, I do support, totally support. This is, last week we were all about, let's not keep people here so long. Let's make the day better so people don't have to sit here. But this is the opportunity to hear from our people. We are elected by them. It is our job to listen and to represent. So I totally support going back to 5 minutes, and we did see a very good example today of how that's really just not enough. So I totally support that. As far as keeping it just to agenda items, no. I guess I am.
Yeah, we had this conversation the other day, and I don't think it's appropriate for us to tell anybody that takes the time to come to our meeting that we're not willing to have you say that now. But if you'll wait 5 hours or however long our meeting is, then we'll let you make that statement. Why would we restrict public comments when that's probably the most important thing that we could do with our time? And I over the last week, I received several comments and questions about our 3-minute rule and the discussion we had. And I went back and reflected on this last year's meeting. And it was not, except for 2 meetings, it was not public comments that kept our meeting going so long. It was the redundancy of us at the table and our use of our time. I don't, Mr. Ashley was able to come today. If he could only come at 9 and not stay until 1 or 2, I don't want to say to him, we're not interested in what you have to say. So I support the 5-minute rule, and I support saying anything that's on your mind, we want to hear you, and we'll listen respectfully.
Mr. Law.
Yes, thank you. The point, I supported this motion for a couple of reasons, and then that's what I wanted to state why and to make a clarification. First of all, though, why would we restrict public comments? Why are we restricting to 5 minutes? Can I have public comments? Just have public comments. Open it up. Because I absolutely believe they're very important. I think it's very important that we listen to the public. Why restrict? As open public comment. My point in supporting this is that this is a second public comment. So by statute, we have to offer 1 public comment. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we have to offer 1 public comment. We offer 2. So as we go into our meetings, by having the first public comment on what we are going to be doing our best on that day for the county, the public comments could be on just what we are going to be dealing with that day. Because this is 2022, our public has the opportunity to contact us any given way that they want to, anytime. So you would take away that one little segment of they're going to come up here and speak to us about something that we're not going to be dealing with that day, but only in the morning. So they still would have that opportunity at the end of our meeting. that's my reason for supporting it. I think that, I just think that that could be very helpful for us. I know that there are other organizations or counties that do it that way, or don't even offer a first public comment at all, and I'm happy that we do. That is all, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Reynolds.
I would like to make an amendment that we go back to 5 minutes. Just leave it alone. I don't really want to go with the phone ins. I mean, unless we go back into the COVID stage like we did a year ago. I say, we can do it then if that happens, but go back to 5 minutes. I mean, I thought back a week over the year I've sat here, and perfect example I've used is we're arguing probably 40 minutes today over this. We have one subject here that's probably going to speak at the end. We're arguing 45 minutes or whatever for someone that's going to talk 5 minutes, and he's the only one here. I mean, I go back to, it was probably about 3 times last year. I mean, in May, child development issue, maybe the budget. That's the only time we really filled the rooms, and we had to sit here for an hour or two and listen to public comment. At the end, we probably made our best decision making when we had the public filling this room. It's one time that we would listen. And so, I mean, this 5 minute thing is, it's not worth, it's kind of like the prayer. I mean, it's like, I don't see enough people coming in here on a normal meeting that's really taking up our time. I mean, we want to shorten our meeting. We should probably time ourselves. Maybe we could be better speakers and stick to the topic, and we get out of here sooner. Say, excuse me. I watched, and for the 4 or 5 people, 5 minutes. Most of them don't even take 5 minutes. So I'm suggesting that my motion would be that we just keep it 5 minutes and just let's move forward.
Support.
Okay, so your amendment would be to not have the phone call.
Right, it wouldn't be the phone calls unless.
That's what you supported?
I supported both.
5 minutes, no phone calls.
Right. So everybody understands that we have we have 3 things we're going to vote on. First one would be on eliminating the 5 minutes in the motion. Basically, I mean, I'm changing the words a little bit. That's what it's going to be about. It would be, it will not be phone calls, would be the first amendment. The second amendment would be, yes,
First one is 5 minutes each time without phone calls, right?
correct.
Okay.
It's really the second amendment, but it's the first thing we'll vote on. Then the first amendment is that that it be 5 minutes, but it also be to only agenda items. And then we would vote on the motion as not amended or amended.
It's progressive, depending on what happens, just for my minutes. Depending on what happens, this first amendment, the latest amendment that was made here, that you vote on is the amendment to keep it 5 minutes with no phone. That's the first one. Depending on what happens with that one, then you would go to the amendment by Commissioner Rushton. Depending on this passes or fails, and that would be a portion of hers, either all stays or part of it goes. Correct?
5 minutes, agenda items only.
And so depending on what happens here, it could just be a portion of yours, just so I'm clear with what I'm doing. Got it.
And so with Commissioner Rushton's, there would be phone calls.
No. That would all depend on whether
Phone
we
calls,
vote for that or not.
phone calls were only attached to the second public comment.
Does everyone understand? The first vote is going to be whether we have phone calls or not. All right, we allow them at the last.
It's 5 minutes, set public comment, go back to 5 minutes and no phone calls. That's what you're voting on first.
Correct.
Okay,
That's what I was.
that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, yes.
Just clarification, we will still continue allowing people to submit public comment in writing and attached to a board packet or included in our
Board packet.
board packet.
Yes. Okay, so this will be on the second amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. That motion passes 7-0. So now we'll do, so now if we have eliminated basically the phone call. Right. So now it's whether we we keep it 5 minutes and only have it 2 agenda items.
No, you just passed it, it's going to 5 minutes. You just passed it, it's going to 5 minutes
Right.
with no phone calls. Now we're going to Commissioner Rushton's, which is, because you just voted on this, what it leaves whole in hers now is just that the first public comment is limited to topics on the day's agenda. Correct, everyone?
5 minutes on agenda items only.
Everyone understand that? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no.
No.
Motion fails 4-3. So now we will go to 5 minutes with open comment, basically, on any item.
So this would add to what we already.
No, this will just change it from 3 minutes to 5 minutes, and it's on anything they want to talk
So
about.
this goes back to our old rules.
Right, right. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no.
No.
Motion passes 4-3.
So we did add commissioners' comments after public comment.
Yes, so that wasn't.
Yeah, no, I'm just going forward here.
Okay,
I assume you want to go forward, Mr. Chairman?
yes,
Okay.
Can I ask a question then?
yes.
Because today we assumed that the 3 minutes was already in effect, but we didn't do a consent agenda.
Because we haven't had time to come up with a consent agenda.
No.
That's why.
So I think what, yeah.
Well, the
and
consent
which is
agenda is coming up next.
Yeah.
But-
We can't have a consent agenda at this meeting because there is nothing that we have voted 7-0 on.
So that's only
well-
for the public meeting?
No, it'll only be for the
Well,
second.
I have a proposal coming up here shortly on
Oh, okay.
consent that we can.
Do you want me to answer?
Go ahead,
What,
yes.
what Commissioner Allgaier asked is, why did we have a 3-minute public comment today? The reason you had a 3-minute public comment today is last week at your organizational, that's an official meeting, like what you do at night. And you voted and approved a 3-minute public comment period. So that held for today's public comment. It holds for today's public comment at the beginning and at the end of the meeting. Next week, when you finally vote on this, if these votes hold, then it would come into play at the end of next week's regular session when you approve these changes. So you would have 3 minutes at the beginning of your regular session next week. And if these pass, then you go to 5 minutes at the end.
Okay, and to add to that, are you saying we only have a consent agenda for the public meeting?
I thought you asked me to come up with guidelines, which is coming up further.
I just think we weren't being consistent.
Well, we don't have the guidelines for the consent agenda yet. You asked me to develop those. So that's
And
today.
I honor that, but I think we were being inconsistent and not.
Well, if you look at my proposal, we could have in theory had consent agenda today, but we haven't had a chance to review this yet, so that's why it's not on the agenda. But you all agree to the commissioner's comments. So we added that today to the agenda. That was on the agenda this morning, right? After public comments.
Commissioner Law.
Well, I was just going to say, we really are being inconsistent, because last week we said 3 minutes, and this week we're saying 5, and so next week we might say 3 again, but that's just kind of.
You do have the right to change.
These are all public meetings. I think what you mean to say next week's the regular board session.
Yeah,
That's not a good summary of what I said, but I.
Here's the thing, at the organizational meeting is a official meeting, and any decisions we made there are final decisions.
I was just noting.
And so this is only a committee of the whole or an executive committee. So any decisions we make here are only recommendations. So next week, the first public comment will be 3 minutes.
Right.
Okay. You know, and then if we finalize this 5 minutes, then they will go to 5 minutes and probably at the final comment. So, you know, at least that's what we're doing, and that's why you're saying, you know, I guess that's what we have to be aware of, that some meetings are special or actual meetings where the votes count, executive meetings or committees of the whole, the votes are there, but they're also just recommendations to a regular meeting.
And last week you asked me to come up with the guidelines for consent agenda items. So that's why it's next here. So if you turn to page 62, I attempted to come up with a definition, and I'll just summarize, that basically the consent items are recommended by the county administrator and approved by the board chairman. And prior to distribution of the agenda, and it could be at the executive or it could be at the regular, if the chairman and I agree. For example, April gets a donation for $500. I recommend that the executive meeting that comes on the agenda as consent, if the chairman agrees, that be on the consent item. There's certain things on the executive committee that are typical routine things. And so I would recommend the chairman would approve it, it'd go out. Any of you would have the right to take it off the consent agenda. If you did, it'd just be a regular agenda item. You could do it the other way, where you only do it on the regular meeting, but I thought the goal was to condense the executive committee meetings. Our regular meetings usually are not a time crunch area. So this way, I would recommend to the chairman would have to look at it and agree. If he agrees that it's a consent item, it'd be sent out to all of you. If he would not agree, then it would just go out as a regular agenda item. So at the executive committee meeting, any of you could request that it be taken off the consent agenda. All the information would still be in the board packages.
So move. I like this change. I move to recommend that we change our consent agenda as detailed.
Any questions or anything?
You're basically adding this to your board rules.
Yeah. Previously, when we did the consent agenda many years ago, it was only at the public meeting in the evening. So I like this better, actually.
Regular board meeting.
Yeah, the regular board meeting.
They're all public meetings.
Well, you're right.
Well, I think this language follows the goals of trying to keep this meeting shorter, because there are a lot of simple things that I think all of you agree on. And it's true that most of our votes are 7-0, but still gives every commissioner the right to remove anything. And it could be not that you're not opposed to it. You just want to have more debate on it, or you want the public to know about it, or you have some comments to make about it.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion passes 7-0.
And then on page 63 on the offsite, I try to come up with language that basically we have to abide by state law. And I start off with a statement there that currently offsite purchase is not allowed. However, if there's changes in the law, we would go back to our old format unless we changed it. And so I added at the beginning and I added at the very end that these guidelines are modification of the Open Meetings Act as revised.
So moved.
I have a question.
Okay, but we don't have a second, so the motion fails for
Oh,
lack
no,
of
I'll
a second.
second. I thought you did.
Oh,
I
no,
thought-
okay,
Okay.
so we do have a second. Did you want to speak? Commissioner Rushton?
You said, Chet, that we are reverting back to our old policy.
Only
position.
if allowed by state law.
Correct.
Currently, it does not.
Correct. However, I believe our old law limited it to so many times a year.
Yeah, and that's still in the policy. That has not been changed.
Okay,
If you look at, where
Yep,
is it?
two, item 2.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so I didn't change anything that was in the policy. I simply added the statement about the Open
Yeah.
Meetings Act. Because I don't want to have something in here that be in violation of state policy in our board rules. So if the state changes it, let's say between the February meeting or March meeting, then I'll put back on the agenda. But this kind of gives us some flexibility and knowing that we're not in compliance. I don't want someone to look at our board rules and say, well, you're not in compliance with state open meetings act.
Yes, my concern is that, you know, the state does have a policy. And yet we have a policy that varies to it, and we're just currently saying it's, you know, that we can't use it. And I think we shouldn't even have a policy and just go by the state policy.
You certainly have that option.
You know, because theirs, I have a feeling theirs won't even let ours, the new one, or this one, old one, comply. And so
I think it's being debated this week or next week with Nancy. They've had a lot of comments from people requesting the flexibility to go back to remote meetings. Whether it'll happen or not, I don't know.
Yeah. All right, I'll know what we're voting on, just the changes here that are in yellow. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. I'd say no. Anyway, so then we'll move on to the next. Is there anything
I think
else
that's it.
other than the dates? Okay, so the motion passes 6-1.
So assuming the consensus item clarification passes next Tuesday night at the February meeting, there'll be a consent agenda. If the chairman agrees to put items on the consent agenda.
Break, yeah. Let's just take a short break and then we'll come back for the final session.
Oh, you did.
All right.
I mean, I didn't.
Buzz, can you?
Take credit.
Okay. Here you go, I brought you these.
So,
Thank you.
perfect timing, thank you.
Thank you.
You can all go down and,
Patiently to. Laura, what's
You
the?
never know what you ask, right? So, but, yeah.
you can all go down and purchase these downstairs.
I'll just ask Chad, you can do an update about.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
I know.
screen, Michelle.
You all set?
I'm ready.
Back to order. And since we're on number 10C, potential federal COVID-19.
Yeah, this is an update because it's being debated probably as we speak at the Supreme Court. As you know, there's a federal mandate that was supposed to take effect, I believe, January 4th, that all employers with over 100 people were required to have their employees vaccinated or repeat testing. That has been challenged. It's at the Supreme Court. Our legal counsel has said, and so has Mac, that depending on the Supreme Court decision, we have to abide by the rules if it's endorsed. So the Supreme Court rules that the federal mandate is legal because we have over 100 employees. We would have to have a policy in place mandating that all employees are vaccinated. If they aren't, they have to wear masks and get tested on a weekly basis. Our legal counsel will draft such a policy for us if that occurs. So as you know, the hearing started, I believe, last Thursday at the Supreme Court, and they're expecting a decision maybe this week. So this time I'm just saying we move it forward to next week to see if there is a decision and how that would impact us.
I have a motion to do that.
So moved.
Any other questions or statements? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion passes 7-0.
And then a related topic, we unfortunately had a couple employees this week test positive for COVID. And so I look at the CDC guidelines and I asked for advice from our health department officials. The quarantine rate, if you test positive, now has reduced to 5 days. It's 5 days after you test positive. So next day is day 1. At the end of 5 days, if there are no symptoms, that employee is allowed to come back to work. I'll get an email to our staff shortly. There is no mandate for testing to come back to work. It's if you have no symptoms at the end of the 5th day, which is the 6th day after you test, you can come back to work. There is no mandate for negative testing. There also is no mandate to wear masks. However, they encourage mask wearing for days 6 through 10. I just thought you should know that. That's
All right.
a reduction because it was 10 days prior to that.
So that-
If I can ask, do you know if we have adequate testing supplies now in the county to support?
At this point, yes, we do.
Okay.
For our staff, we do. One of the questions that may resolve, and it may be resolved because there's another federal guideline that may take effect shortly that insurance companies have to pay for the testing kits. Because one of the questions prior to that, if that does occur, is that who is going to pay for the testing? Is that the employee's responsibility? Is that the employer? The other issue is whether kits were even available because there's a shortage. But I can tell you because I've done it and I've double checked as I talked to Mr. Kiesel this morning. We have enough testing kits.
And are we going to be responsible for the cost?
Right now, there's been no cost. There, and it appears with the new mandate that insurance companies will be paying for these kits. So it's still a revolving topic.
Well, I would think if we're the employer and we're mandating.
It's an OSHA mandate. It's not a county mandate. That's the difference.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not something that we have a choice in. Contingent on the Supreme Court. So it would not be an employer mandate.
It's an OSHA mandate.
For individual, for companies or units of government that have over 100 employees, which we do. So we would have no option there. There'd be severe fines.
All right, we'll move on to review of financials. Are there any questions?
Yes. Good afternoon, Jen.
Hello.
Hi. On our revenue and expenditure, expense report, it looks like that just goes through November 30th.
Yes.
Okay. So we have several departments that are at limit or?
Yes, and so in December, I did all those year-end amendments.
Yeah.
And everyone should be A-okay until all the bills come in until February 28th.
Okay, what I was hoping you could explain to me is, what am I missing with Emergency Services Department totals?
So the Emergency Services Department has the ARPA funds in there. Yep, as well as any of the CDBG grant that was prepared by end of year.
Okay. That's really the only one I had. American Legion had kind of a high.
Yeah, I think that was because of COVID this year, so they did go over their budget, but it was less, so I bumped that one up.
Okay.
Yep.
Probably the other work I'm working on, but okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
As far as claims and accounts, I didn't have any questions or post audit. I'm mostly through and I didn't. Yeah. Post audit still a lot of December, obviously. Yeah. Is this going to be?
So your post audit for December, yep, will be done. And then what'll happen is on the claims and accounts, there'll be 2 reports. All check runs go back to 21 and a separate check run for 2022 bills. So you'll start to see those separated.
Anything else? Thank you. Brenda.
You're welcome.
That will bring us to special reports by staff, commissioners, and affiliated agencies.
You mentioned you guys get the email that showed that the laundry project was slated to, what they believed to get 50,000. They actually got 63 from Bobby Eggert and what are both of their names?
Jim and Bobby Eggert.
Jim and Bobby, which is so generous and kind. So that's really, really, really nice.
Anything else?
Is this just reports or is this comment?
No, this is just reports. So then that brings us to public comment. And I think the consensus is here that you can have your file.
That's good because part of my comment, I'm Keith Ashley from Leland. Had you given me the extra 30 seconds that I asked for, I'd be out of here. As a result, I'm here and you're going to be here for a little bit longer.
Change our mind.
Well, it gave me time to look up the rules for 2022 for this body. And on pages 60, 61, 65, and 63, those provisions state members of the public may address the Board of Commissioners for up to 5 minutes per person or longer at the discretion of the chair after they identify themselves and are recognized. So at the beginning of this meeting, I identified myself and I was recognized. And according to your rules published, I know all the discussion was about 3 minutes, but your published rules say 5 minutes. So I want to take the 5, which you said I could have, and I appreciate that. I don't think I need more than that, but I'd like the other 2 minutes in case I need them. In your discussion about the prayer, Commissioner Bundick, you said the policy was written by the council. I pointed out at the last Board of Commissioner meeting, the general meeting for the public, the sequence of events having to do with how that policy was written by the council and rewritten. And I stated that on April 19th, you got a policy from your council that the board would allow a prayer selected by the commissioners voluntarily delivered by an eligible member of the clergy in Leelanau County. On May 4th, that prayer policy, a proposal was sent back to you from your law firm, striking out the requirement that the clergy be from Leelanau County. And at your discussion early on, when it was proposed to have this be more inclusive, the comment was made by one of you, and I don't remember for certain which one. But it was that, well, we've already gone down this road, and if we change it now, we would have to have our attorneys, rewrite this thing again, and, we don't want to do that. But they had already rewritten it to meet that interest of not being exclusionary. And it was on May 12th that Chairman Bunnick, or Commissioner Bunnick, sent revisions to the law firm asking that the policy be rewritten again. And that revised policy, which is the one that you adopted, was exclusionary and required that the clergy be from this county. So to say that the policy was written by council is true in that it was written by the council, but it was not directed by the council. It was directed by Chairman Bunnick to put that back in there, that the clergy would have to be from this county. So I just think it needs to be clear to you and to the public that the exclusionary policy is driven by this board, and it's driven by Chairman Bunnick's direction to your law firm. And I think it's worth noting that. I'd like to just finish off the comments that I started to make early on at this meeting at 9 o'clock, 4 hours ago. Good thing I'm retired. I have a lot of time, I have a lot of patience, and I have a lot of interest in making comments that serve what I think are my feelings and a certain segment of the public. And you can do what you want, but you will not stop the little fire that's been lit. So to continue my comments early on having to do with the circus, as Commissioner Lautner defined it. You wasted, this is number 6 on my list, you wasted hours of your time and the public's time to generate a firestorm against the Leelanau Benzie Health Department's policy and position on wearing masks. You knew your vote would not and could not have any effect on the policy. You spent an enormous amount of time in your last executive meeting agonizing over the amount of time granted to the public for public comment. And you've spoken to this here today. And yet you don't mind wasting time on things like this. To me, it was another case of showboating for the public. Number 7 is your decision to continue the prayer policy, since it's only been in place since August, is a rather weird rationale. You're going to continue this for another 8 months. Are you waiting for more proof from above that the minister's pleas are being heard? You have no quantifiable way of measuring the success of a prayer policy other than the warm, fuzzy feeling that some of you apparently get. Or are you waiting for the public to tire of commenting on this? And I assure you, if that's the case, you will not outlast me until I'm horizontal. So when you think about a circus, reflect on who the ringmasters are. Think about the fact you can empty part of that big top by voting to eliminate the prayer policy. I thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll move on to commissioner comments. Mr. Wessel.
I know that the job of chairperson is tough. But I raised a point of order from earlier in our meeting. I really do want to treat when the administrator makes a report, that if I have a question about what the administrator is reporting, it is appropriate at that time to raise that question. And we had a civil conversation afterwards, and I think we agree on that. But I did feel like he was raising something, and we moved quickly from the HR to the facility job. But I had a legitimate question, and I do want to just raise a point of order that when the administrative report shows up on the agenda, that is an appropriate time for everybody to ask questions, not just the chair, or not just the Republicans on the commission. And I was not pleased with being told I couldn't raise a question. So that's just my point of order, and I think we've resolved it, but thank you.
I really appreciate Mr. Ashley's comments. I also appreciate you pointing out that our legal staff did not make this exclusionary. Thank you very much. I knew that. We didn't have a chance to really bring that up, so thank you very much. This is a choice of certain commissioners to exclude. I'm disappointed. I have to say again, I believe our job is to represent all of our people and not exclude anyone and their heartfelt beliefs. So I want to say to people of Leelanau, we appreciate all of you. We want to hear your voices. I'm very glad that we come back and from our 3-minute rule to a 5-minute rule. You are all appreciated, you are all honored, and we want to hear your voices. I am sorry about our inability or failure to change our prayer points.
I would just like to say it is amazing to me how things can get twisted. Because Commissioner Elgire and I were on a committee to do the prayer thing. She had one way that she wrote it, and that was sent to the lawyers. I wrote it, I actually followed what they had done, and we sent that. Once the committee decided well, we never did agree. So, I mean, to say that I wrote one and she wrote one, we just gave different versions to our corporate counsel for the final thing, to make sure it was approved and approved by them, so that when the board voted on it, we would have a policy that did not, that met the rules that our Constitution has allowed for prayer at public meetings. So this, so you can twist it however you want, people can twist it however they want, but then we went through a process and we actually had a committee meetings, we actually did the things, and to say one person or another person is totally responsible, just changes the how it's presented. And so then you have to have a commissioner agree with how it's being presented. That does bother me when she actually was involved in the process. So those are my comments.
I have to say,
Commissioner, so does Liz.
I just want to say I'm delighted we have goals. It's January and we have some good goals to move forward on, and we have a lot that we need to finish up. There are important key issues that we've been working on, so I hope this will be a year of a lot of progress.
Well, on that note, can we take February off? Because, we spent February last year doing goals. So,
Yeah.
We're ahead of schedule.
Yes, any other comments?
I would like to remind all the commissioners to please speak into the microphones because only half of us hear what you say.
A question, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering, Deb, your voice projects loudly and it's usually easily to hear you. But it seems like everyone was not being heard. Usually I'm the one who doesn't get heard. I've been trying to speak in, but I'm wondering, do we need the level raised?
No, I've been watching you. Most of you speak from back here. If you just do a test, speak from back here, speak here, you'll see a big difference.
Well, yeah, that's why I've had to speak here.
And for example, if you speak right
You're
now,
speaking
I
this
think
way.
everyone can hear you. Yeah.
Or speaking this way, a long way away from your microphone. So from here to there, I can hear part of it. I can't hear all of it.
You gotta make sure you hear it all.
Now you got two of them talking.
Any other commissioner comments? Seeing none, then we'll move on to approval of financials.
Chairman, I would recommend approval of claims and accounts amount $78,503.47.
Support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 7-0.
Recommend approval of post audit $1,869,346.10.
Support. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 7-0. We are adjourned.